All right. Welcome back to the show. My apologies for the technical difficulties. Second time is the charm. We suck. You suck. We all suck. The world sucks. Life sucks. Just kidding. Welcome to the World Peace Podcast. It's your host with the most, Darren. This is the first ever episode. What will be a series of episodes dedicated to people of all races and religions coming together to save the world. How awesome is that?
Awesome.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is you may be on this beautiful planet Earth we call home. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are currently broadcasting to you live via the power of the internet around the world from beautiful San Francisco, California. Usually that is. Right now I am in Brazil, in the city of Manaus, in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. And our buddy old pal, our co-host, our dear friend Wilton Cassibry is joining us live from the beautiful islands of Hawaii. Make some noise, brother.
Aloha.
Welcome.
I am currently on Kauai.
Amazing.
It is a beautiful day. I watered my garden. I got a whole bunch of tomatoes and tomatoes, lettuce, and quinoa.
One more time, I
Arugula.
apologize. You were cutting out. You sounded like an alien. What are you growing in your victory garden in Hawaii? What are you growing? What are you farming?
So let's see. I got tomatoes and cucumbers and corn, and I got quinoa and tomatoes, there's papayas, there's basil, got ginger, sweet potatoes, turmeric. I got sweet peas, sugar daddy peas. I got some broccoli. What else? Oh, I got some okra. But yeah, I got a whole bunch of sprouts coming up. I don't even know what I got going yet.
Amazing, man.
Some of the seeds didn't take, and so I've grown quite a few things.
We're going to get more into your lifestyle on the islands of Hawaii, as well as your personal journey and all that jazz. But first, a few disclaimers for our audience. First and foremost, thank you so much to each and every single one of you tuning in to the show. It means the world to us. We really appreciate it. And if you appreciate what you're listening to, please hit that like button, drop a comment below. Let me know what you're thinking, how you feeling, what you want to hear on the World Peace Podcast in the future. And as always, be sure to subscribe and follow us on social media. Support us, support our individual journey, support our collective journey, support world peace. Link to all that great stuff in the description below. Of course, my apologies ahead of time for any undesirable background noise or unintentional interruptions that may occur. And also, hey, we're going to be recording this all in one take, so hopefully if I make a mistake, I can apply what I've learned moving forward, and if not, no hard feelings. But yeah, with that said, we are not one of those fancy podcasts you guys may be accustomed to listening to with all the fancy editing software and recording equipment. We are, on a budget around here, I guess, so to speak. We're just getting started, and everyone loves a humble beginning, and here we are, off to a rocky start. Let's see, who, what, where, when, why. Man, there are plenty of other podcasts to listen to, so if this is not your cup of tea, go ahead and click out. But for those of you who are still here, listening, showing us love, thank you so much. It means the world. Whether you are on your way to school, on your way to work, on your way home, who knows? You're in traffic, you're at the gym, you're on an airplane, you're on a train, maybe you're in the car listening, who cares? Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the World Peace Podcast. I do believe, now we've got the disclaimers out of the way, I do believe a bit of an introduction is in order. Who's the guy talking right now? Who are you listening to speak? My name is Darren Stallcup, founder of the World Peace Movement. Long story short, my house burned down to the ground when I was a kid. I Started hitchhiking north, east, south, and west across the United States of America. Ended up on an Eskimo village on the Arctic Ocean of Alaska, dog mushing underneath the northern lights. Now I'm back here in San Francisco fighting the good fight, where for years I have helped the homeless, raised awareness about the dangers of fentanyl, as well as passing out food, clothing, blankets, all that good stuff to less fortunate on the streets. Here at the World Peace Podcast, we're all about spreading peace, hope, and love. We truly believe with all of our hearts, we're all brothers and sisters. Doesn't matter what race or religion you are. Love is the answer. Together, we can save the world. Wilton, I know we're going to be unpacking your life journey in the coming episodes, but if you had to say a few words about your journey so far, what would they be, man?
Well, I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, with Alabama when I was 13. My parents are hardworking. Both my parents worked growing up. Provided me with a very awesome childhood, and I would say that that continued into my more formative years, where after I moved to Alabama. But I feel like it cripples a child, remove them from their network. And so I had to get new friends, and it was temporary, but never established the deep, lifelong friendships that some other people have. And so I've been more inclined to travel. After I withdrew from college 3 times, really was more focused on potentially taking a gap year and traveling Europe or something when I graduated high school. But I didn't do that. I went to college, and then I just never found my stride in the college setting. I never found a good support group and really made tight friendships. I did join a fraternity. It was more like Animal House than anything.
Yeah,
and,
man. Tell us about the whole college partying scene. It's one of the most common questions I get whenever I'm traveling around the world. No matter if I'm in Europe or South America or the Middle East, they always ask me, Darren, what's the college life like in America? And unfortunately, I dropped out of school. I never had the opportunity to go to college. I'm really proud of you, man. You made it to college, but it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. But how were those parties, man?
I was a high achieving high school student. When I graduated high school, I graduated with like a 4.6 GPA. It was weighted,
That's
on a
insane.
5-point scale.
That's insane.
And, I had a really challenging but rewarding high school, education. So when I went to college, and it seemed like they were just shepherding people into dead-end jobs, or jobs that really weren't what their vision was. They were trying to create workers, that the school has an agenda to bolster certain parts of our societal infrastructure that I think that is compromising to the real wellness and prosperity of the people of our country. And that's a huge problem. Our education system is failing people and is putting people in positions where they work for 20 years and then feel like they got used like a slave, and they don't have enough money to retire, and they didn't really even do what they wanted to do with the degree. A lot of people have student debt well into halfway through their career, even as doctors,
And
lawyers, they're not
we're
making
going to
money.
talk about the value of the dollar. We're going to talk about the national debt. We're going to talk about, the fact that our grandparents were able to just work one job, and they were able to buy a house and a car and live the American dream. And now it's like people work 2 jobs. They can barely afford to live check to check. They're paying an arm and a leg in rent. So in order to escape the
I got
brainwashing
a
and
college scholarship.
indoctrination,
I got a
yes,
college
but in order
scholarship.
to escape
My
this
parents paid.
brainwashing and indoctrination, um, you guys partied. That's what they did. These sororities.
I guess that may be a reason why the party scene is so big in college in America. But it's because I feel like they're we're out from under the thumb of our parents, which seems like oppression. Growing up, until you're 18, you're under the thumb. You're pretty much
Especially
Whatever your
Southern
parents'
parents,
rules are,
man.
those are your
Worst.
rules. Oh
Worst.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. That's why the SEC schools are notorious party schools, and you got the wild girls, and it's really there's too much truth to that to deny it, but it doesn't enhance the college experience, because college is supposed to be about finding a place in your career where you're
Whenever I
respected for
think of Southern
your
parents,
knowledge. You get a degree.
I always imagine the dad with the shotgun talking to his daughter's prom date.
Yeah, I
So
basically encountered that dad. I dated the same girl for 2 years in high school, and her dad was very protective, but I think all
nice,
Southern
man.
parents were, and like that's the way it should be. Like I think that that's very wholesome, for a father to be protective of his daughter.
There's nothing wrong with the
That's why
father
this
being in his child's life.
it's why the stereotype is immortalized in American movies.
Oh my gosh, man. Oh my gosh. Okay, so you get to college, it's a boot scoot boogie. They're indoctrinating people, they're brainwashing people, they're preparing people for the workforce. They may not even be guaranteed a job. Even if they get a job, it's not enough to survive the economy,
It's expensive,
all that.
most of the
Tell
time
us
people are
about.
paying for it out. They're going to, their parents are going to debt for it, whatever. Like
It's time to have a
it's
beer.
not worth the money.
Definitely.
That was
It's
Charlie Kirk's whole thing. Charlie Kirk
yeah,
was amazing because he
man.
got to go on these campuses and they would tell kids, like, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your parents' money if you're not here for the right reasons. You know what I mean? There are reasons to go to almost every university, but you have to be going to the right university for the right reasons, and you have to make the
The right
connections.
degree for the right reason.
Sometimes you have to be so fast in your university degree, that people won't take you seriously if you're not on fire for whatever you want to do, and you're paying the money, and it's stressful. People try to stress you out of the classes. There's weeder classes. There's all kind of temptation. Like I said, you just
A
got
lot
out
of
from
peer
under
pressure.
the thumb, and you can go work a job. A lot of people, that's when they work their first real job is, as a college freshman. I had my first job that was regular, full-time job when I was a freshman, but I was making minimum wage. And I worked 2 different jobs where I made minimum wage, and then I refused to make minimum wage because it was just unlivable. It was unlivable in 2013. It's unlivable in 2025 too. 7.25 is still the minimum wage in Alabama. I don't know how anybody could be paid 7.25. I'm sure now that the norm is that you just don't get paid
Gas in
minimum wage in
California is
Alabama, but there's
almost.
still some jobs that they can do it. They can take advantage of people, and if they're freaking their ways, a lot of people get taken advantage of because oh well, they're getting taken care of. Somebody else is paying their rent and stuff, so it doesn't really matter how much they make when they're just making spending money. But it does, because that's it's a value of a human services, and people are just getting taken advantage of. Their time and energy are being taken away
And it
from their
impacts
schoolwork, and they're
everybody
not getting paid
else's
enough money.
return. It's like they're taking less, and now the corporations are like, we'll give them less, and we keep taking less. And I think we're at a point where we're not going to take it anymore. But before we get to our pitchforks and torches, tell us about these college parties, man. Were they wild or what? Did you bang any hot chicks? Did you do any cake stands? Did the cops get called? What was the deal with that? You were in like a sorority
Well,
or
I don't
something?
usually kiss and tell. Sororities are for girls. And sororities they were so sexually stigmatized. There was so much sexism at Auburn's campus. Apparently, if there are 3 girls living in a house by themselves, 3 or more, that's actually considered a brothel in the town of Auburn. So there are no sorority houses. The sorority houses can't exist. Like, you can have, you know, your own roommates, but if you're trying to do that as an organized school organization, then you become a brothel instead of fraternities have no stipulation against it. But if you're women, then I guess you do. And it shouldn't be a thing, but then the reality of it is that a lot of, uh, women are promiscuous in their college years. And if you had to, say 50 women, they're all single, there are some some complications and
And they're
for
ready to
the sake
experience
of
life, especially the Southern girls.
police
They
and
haven't
all
had a
kinds
straight
of
father
stuff.
growing up, and they've never
They
really
want to
been
keep
let out.
people safe. They want to keep people safe, and it's really about exposing um, innocent people to not so innocent people. You know what I mean? That's what college is. It's a lot of people learning lessons. I'm not defending the way that the university runs, but it's familiar with running it that way. And if they did it some other way, then they would have to bring in people from out of town who knew how to do it in differently.
Tell
The
me
police in
about
Auburn are so racist. They're so racist. It's terrible. It's really
the
bad.
craziest party you've ever been to.
Um, I won't even say they're racist. They're just, I have to go back on these police because the police are just corrupted and they're politically motivated. They're bought and paid for by people with very specific political ideologies, which makes them racist, but also makes them all kinds of other things that I can't even get into. It's complex. So, but yeah, anyway, what was your question?
The most craziest college party you ever went to. Tell us about it.
Uh, it actually wasn't where I went to school. It was in, Ames, Iowa. I went to this Halloween party and, there was a equally kind of crazy Halloween party that I went to, um, when I was in a fraternity at our fraternity house in Auburn. And, but the one in, this was Ames, Iowa. It was my friend's university. Uh, it was really just because of the environment. We had decided that we were going to candy flip for Halloween. And for those of you that are not drug versed,
What's a
that's
candy flip?
where you take LSD and MDMA at the same time. And,
That's insane, bro. Keep going.
that's probably pretty much the craziest drug combo I've ever experienced too. And, but it really was all about the environment because everybody's in costume and the MDMA affected me first. And so I was just happy. I was just completely elated and I
Whoa,
was
that's
talking to
intense,
people
bro.
and
That's
laughing.
intense.
And then I went down into the basement of this fraternity house or party house that we were at and it had all this glow in the dark murals on it. And then I started experiencing the LSD and the walls started like breathing and they were like 3D and glowing. And so I stayed in the basement for a good hour and I lost my friend who was also candy flipping. And so when I found him,
Did you find him?
he was being
Did you find
escorted.
him hurled up in the fetal position in the corner somewhere?
No, I didn't. He was handling it a lot better than me and he was escorted to me laughing. He was just hysterically laughing. And he brought this girl who was like cute. She was really cute, but all I could focus on was her costume because she was dressed up as sexy Pikachu. And I started uncontrollably laughing, at which point this girl thought like she's the luckiest girl in the world that she, is so appreciated for her costume. And so we all go up to my friend's room who lived in the house and, or my friend's room who lived in the house and we all kind of sit down and we start talking and, like just having a good time really. And then I had I had to draw and, I'll never forget, like, I was so inspired to draw something, right? But then when I went to draw, I couldn't focus on drawing anything for shit. And he gave me lined paper and a pencil, so I really didn't feel like too terribly inspired. And I drew a hand turkey and then I continued to laugh hysterically. And we were just having fun, all the people in the room were good people. I really don't even remember what happened, but I did go to a lot of good, parties where, you know, It was just a lot of drinking.
What's that
I don't
like
know.
when the
I
frats
drank.
and the
I
sororities are
drank
in the
then.
same room?
I've been sober, alcohol free for, 7 years now. So yeah, I guess 6 or 7 years now. But I'm not counting, you know what I mean? Like if the situation arose and I was in good company, I might have a cocktail again. I haven't been in a situation where I wanted to drink. You know, if it was my friend's wedding and I got invited, I'd totally drink some champagne or something, but I just don't drink anymore for real. And,
You're saying you ain't got a reason to
it's
drink.
because, yeah, exactly. I don't have a reason to drink, and that's been a blessing. And not only that, but nobody should really have reasons to drink. If you have a reason to drink, you have a reason to go in and better yourself in some other way. You know what I mean? Obviously, something's made you upset, or, you know, if the reason to drink is celebration, then, you know, celebrating, I might do a different way. So I, I've grown out of alcohol. I got pretty much roofied at a bar one time, or drugged. I don't even know what happened. There were 2 times that I think I went to this bar and people were picking on me. I don't know why exactly. Maybe it was, um, I hadn't established myself musically, and I really still haven't, because I've had so much equipment stolen. I've been trying to get back on that flow. I haven't even had a place to live until recently, though. I've been living out of a car for
Yeah,
years.
besides a farmer, you're also a
Um,
chef and a musician, and a nomad, a traveler, a healer of sorts, a yoga enthusiast, and I know you want to get into scuba diving and surfing, man. College is crazy. Alcohol is fire water. It's, I drink maybe once or twice a month personally, and then you got those people that drink every day, and we
well,
don't
as a
really have
college
to get
freshman,
into the
I could
dangers
say
of
I was
alcohol too much,
probably
but
what I would consider myself an alcoholic now, but, you know, I would consider myself an 18 or 19-year-old kid, you know, in retrospect. Or, you know, now if I was like that, I would consider myself an alcoholic. But knowing that I was just a 19-year-old college student, then I just say that's what I was.
it's
Because, you
become
know,
so
there's a difference.
ingrained into our American culture. We're drinking to watch the game. We're
It's a rite of passage. I don't want to say everybody should drink, but you know what I mean? Because it's not good for you.
I think having a
Once your
beer at
brain's
the end of the
developed,
day is
though, you
having a
know,
beer at the end of the day is cool. Maybe even two or three if you work
beer
all
used to
day
be
long.
good for people. Beer used to be made out of stuff that was beneficial to your gut microbiome. And yeah, it might have even been euphoric in some kind of way, but it had health benefits. And now there's no health benefit to Miller Lite, I promise.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you're out there, if you're struggling with alcoholism, if you just can't put that bottle down, definitely trying to get some help. It takes a lot of strength to get help, but you will not regret it. If you can't go a few days without drinking, I don't know what to tell you, man. And that's never really been me either. Even when I came here to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, I was drinking maybe 2 or 3 days in a row, but then I'd take a break. When you wake up hangover, you fucking feel like shit, man. Your muscles are weak. You can't think. Your vision's cloudy. Your mind's cloudy. Next thing you know, you're falling over. Your balance is off. Your whole agenda, your synchronicity between yourself and the surrounding world is just, and you're more easily agitated. You're quick to get upset, or you'll get angry really quick. So it's you guys. Hey, but guess what? Alcohol's not like fentanyl. People are dying off fentanyl. So I guess there are pretty worse poisons out there.
I don't know, man. I think more people have probably historically died from alcohol than fentanyl. Fentanyl's new on the scene, but more people have died from alcohol.
I agree, and definitely never drink and drive. Always order a taxi, a Uber. Kids, if you're listening to this show, you know, don't get peer pressured into getting drunk. If you're not ready to take that step, or you don't feel like drinking, then you don't have to, man. So yeah, college is crazy. A lot of peer pressure. Did you see any other drugs besides LSD and MDMA, which is actually pretty rare? Yeah. Any
I mean,
marijuana, cocaine,
I don't know what you, I mean, I had,
mushrooms?
my first experiences with pretty much anything that was not heroin or,
Crack or meth?
you know, crack or meth. Yeah. I'm not into what I would consider hard drugs, but you know, I've tried it all, and I think that I've tried most of it once, I should say. I mean, my most ridiculous drug experience was actually Robitussin.
That's
Um,
insane, bro.
don't drink a whole bottle of Robitussin, kids. That's actually really bad for you. But if I was gonna write my review, it was extremely euphoric, and I felt like I was walking on trampolines, and yeah, it was a ridiculous experience. It's probably so terrible for your liver that I shouldn't even talk about it, but you know, um we all make mistakes and learn and grow as people. And yeah, I share my experience so somebody else doesn't have to. I've
So
been
how did you get from college to Hawaii,
experimenting
man?
with different substances, I guess, since I was, you know, in high school. And I think that the only one that has ever really done me absolute positives is marijuana. And, you know, like, it has negatives as well. You know, smoking anything isn't good for you.
A
But
little pot's not going to kill you.
no.
Alcohol is
And
worse.
people want to call it the gateway drug, but you know, maybe it's the greatest fallback for people that have you know, they have a
Maybe some
fixation.
people
Maybe
have
if
cancer, or
they need to
maybe some
smoke, if
people don't want to do a bunch of
they love to
pills.
smoke and they don't care that they're adults and they want to take the risk of, you know, smoking, inhaling uh tar, then, you know, I would just say the cleanest thing that they could burn and put into their body is probably still like marijuana or herbs, you know, some kind of herbal blend.
And people have cancer, or they don't want to take a bunch of pills. Some people are getting prescribed dozens of pills. They don't want to pop a handful of pills every day. They're turning to pot. And we're going to talk more about pot later on in the show. The global persecution of stoners, the fight to legalize cannabis worldwide, and the medicinal and textile values of this ancient crop, which has been used by mankind for thousands of years, but to the last 100 years or so, it's been considered taboo, and we're hoping to break some stereotypes. Yeah, man. How did you get from college? How did you get from college to Hawaii, man? What made you choose the nomad lifestyle? When did you start living off the land?
Well, living off the land, I guess, is an interesting uh qualifier, I guess. I'm trying to say I really I moved out here 4 years ago. I had gone on a road trip to California. I'd been kind of exploring the United States, thinking about getting a van on the mainland and doing some real exploring, finding a place that I would like to settle down. Maybe some school that I didn't even know existed that I'd like to go to school at, but just network and meet people. And I was planning on touring the country, you know, in a van, playing songs for people, you know, performing. And I plan on it. I know right now Hawaii has pushed me into its vortex, and I looked at flights to Washington, Oregon to buy a van 4 years ago when before I came out here, and flights to Hawaii were the same price. And so I ended up saying, oh, I'll check Hawaii off my bucket list. I booked a flight to Kilo. And before I came here, I said, you know what? Something's calling me to the car. Changed my flight to Kauai, and I haven't left. It took me 2 years to even leave the island. I got extorted by the hotels. There's crazy COVID fascist mandates and all
Let me
kinds of
guess. They forced you to
garbage
quarantine as soon
bureaucracy.
as you land in Hawaii.
Just, yeah, yeah. They forced me to quarantine 10 days. I spent, you know, $200 a night on a hotel that I couldn't afford, got out, was broke on the beach, got robbed, got a job, got a car, and then I ended up living here. Um, it took everything I had. Honestly, I got robbed, I got assaulted, I had ongoing court stuff. And one thing has led to another, and I've just been kind of forced to be here. There was no better place for me. I would wake up on the beach sometimes and I was like, well, would I like to get a flight back home? I have enough money to get a flight back home right now. And then I was like, well, what would I do? I'd go live at my mom's house. So, I do have some stuff back there, and I have a life to go back to. I've been putting it on hold for about 4 years now, but I've been growing new seeds and new roots, and eventually I'm going to let all of the plants I'm going to harvest some crops soon, I guess is what I'm saying. And it's not just going to be a monocrop. It's going to be a diverse garden. And, I have music to release. I have this podcast with you, maybe other podcasts, maybe my own,
Independent
audio
spin-off
release of
series,
just
little daily updates.
independent, just, daily updates or something. Yeah, I've been thinking about doing a video blog or something on my Twitter. And, there's other ways that I want to reach out and, create and, and motivate people to take charge of their own life, because it took a lot for me to make the sacrifices needed to just drop everything and come out here, really. But I've developed so much as a human being, as a independent, as an autodidact, as an independent learner, as just somebody who, um, doesn't subscribe to the mainstream ideology on nearly anything. I've really developed my own
Would you say
opinions
you
on a lot of
traded the
things.
materialism of the mainland for a life of spirituality on the islands of Hawaii?
No, no, I had a life of spirituality where I was, in Alabama or wherever I am. My life is spiritual, but, I would say that I did ditch a mainstream life of conformity and, maybe rat racing it to come out here and run a different race. And, I realize that it's a rat race out here too, but
I guess it's a rat
it
race
is
everywhere, no
different.
matter where you go in the world. There's always going to be a bigger
It is
fish.
a rat race,
But
dude. It is always a rat race.
before we talk about all the trials and tribulations on the islands of Hawaii, then we'll talk about my journey in San Francisco, of course, which everyone's waiting for. Um, and I want to talk about just like the positive aspects of Hawaii, all the things that make Hawaii great. It is as beautiful as it is dangerous. And I know you went through hell and back just to get to where you are. And your journey's really compelling. And, I want to help you share your story with the world, man. And I think it's
Thanks,
really
man.
important for humanity to learn as much as we
I
can.
think it's important too, and it's more than Kauai. It's really Kauai doesn't deserve as much attention in my story as it might get. But I've learned a lot of lessons here, and I don't really know why Kauai ended up being the place where I was drawn to learn those lessons. But I think it's because Kauai is so connected to the international community. Hawaii has been, always like a tendril of connection to a sophisticated, high class, maybe European society for the United States. Hawaii is the first and only monarchy in the United States that, we have a verified history of. Maybe there were Native Americans or peoples indigenous to the Americas that, had a monarchy that we don't even know about because there is no history of them. But the Hawaiian people definitely had a written history, or have a written history of their kingdom. And that is very inspirational for the people here. Like the people here are very, committed to preserving that history. And a lot of the people that have come here and settled the islands are not so committed to preserving the integrity of that story. And so there's a fight. There's a constant struggle here. And that needs to be the struggle that's happening on the mainland also. But it's
I
just,
think the world can learn
people
from
don't real,
Hawaii like a
people,
lot.
oh, the world could learn so many lessons. I'm just telling you, like there's profound lessons for the entire world to learn here. I'm not saying that everybody should come here, because that's actually not the way for it to happen. The way for it to happen, I mean, maybe everybody should visit, but, not everybody should come here at once. That's, what Hawaii has the biggest problem with, is that, the land has not
The
been
unsustainable
respected.
tourism that's gotten out of hand. Too many people coming at once. It really has a negative impact on the environment and the people.
Yeah, but I think people do need to realize, I mean, it's one of the most beautiful connections that the United States has to, our indigenous roots. The real true roots of American culture come from the people that have been here the longest. And like the Caribbean islands had black people that lived on the Caribbean islands, and they didn't come here on slave ships, just like all the other black people. They say in the United States, everybody came here via the slave trade, but that's not true. And I've heard a lot of people trying to reinforce this indigenous truth or this indigenous history that claims that people from Africa settled America even before the people from Europe, or maybe even people that settled Africa came from America and settled Africa too. There's prehistory, we really don't know. We have been kind of blinded by leaders that confused people. They twisted the truth for their own political gain, and there's all kinds of different sciences that are competing to establish truth right now. We have people trying to do carbon dating, people trying to, analyze texts and translate things, and we have people trying to make claims because of the, the way society is, or the development of language, or complex societal patterns that apparently, prove some kind of influence or the real some unspoken or unwritten history.
And then there are people
But
like the
the
beginning
truth
of your
is,
point that are trying to erase this history. And, it's horrible what's happening in
yeah,
Hawaii. But I think with all
well,
that
people have done it
negativity,
multiple times. How many libraries have famously burned in history? You have Alexandria, and you have Babylon, and you have, why can't I think of the other, the, well, you have the Nazis, book burning, and then you have, I mean, it's happened multiple times.
Genghis Khan,
It's happened
the famous Mongol
yeah.
warlord, he was notorious for burning everything that his enemies had, so that there was no history. And Hawaiian history has miraculously survived, despite all the chaos these last few hundred years, and colonization. And some people can argue that it's better to be under American dominion than in other countries, or we gave them infrastructure or all that. But I think Hawaii could give the world the wisdom it needs for world peace. I think the best way to do it is not by
not
everybody
to be too
visiting at once.
stereotypical of American,
Hold on, hear
of
me out
American,
really
but
quick. Hear me out.
okay.
I think the best way for world peace to happen is if we learn as much as we can from the islands of Hawaii. And like you said, the worst way is for everyone to just show up all at once. I think we need to give people from Hawaii, like you and many others who are fighting the good fight, the platform they need to share their story with the world, and the wisdom that comes from that, and the stories and the lessons we can exchange could really have a significant impact on the world, man. Libraries burn, books burn, but at the end of the day, I think the oldest form of storytelling is storytelling itself. When man has a conversation and passes it down.
Yeah.
So tell us about the positives of Hawaii.
Just wait. I did some research, and I have to share something about book burning.
Go for it.
So, did you know about the destruction of the Aztec codices by Ixcotl?
Yeah, the conquistadors.
Yeah, but did you also know about the burning of the Maya codices under the order of Bishop Diego de Landa?
I've heard about it. I've listened to a few podcasts on it. I've read one or two books about it. I think the Aztecs suffer the worst, almost out of any civilization when it comes to the eradication of their own history. I think indigenous Native Americans have the worst, man. So yeah, what did the conquistadors do?
Well, they just burned a lot of books, codices of the Aztecs and Mayas. Um, and Itzcoatl was the fourth king of Tenochtitlan and the founder of the Aztec Empire. I don't know how to say Aztec words. Tenochtitlan, and the founder of the Aztec Empire. But it was internal war.
So you're saying it wasn't just the conquistadors burning books; it was also opposing factions on the Mexican Peninsula. So it was like everyone fighting for dominance over control of just storytelling. So it's like modern history. We're burning books. It's like back then they're trying to burn their calendars and erase any stories they might have told. Yeah, some powerful stuff. Well, what are some of the more positive things you can share from Hawaii? What is some wisdom you've learned since traveling to the island, which you think could help the world? What's it like living in one of the most beautiful places in the world? And what has that taught you spiritually, physically, mentally?
Man, I've just been so grateful to be here every day that I'm here. And I think gratitude is something that being in Hawaii teaches you. You can't not be grateful for the things that are around you. I live in abundance in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, there are things that you live without because you're on an island. You're in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But, people always ask that age-old question, if you could only have one thing on a deserted island, what would you have? And the answer somebody gives you will pretty much tell you if they're capable of living on an island or not. You
Well,
know
what
what
are
I
some of
mean?
the answers you've heard, and then what's
Um,
the answer? Now I'm interested.
well, there's not really an answer. If I was on a deserted island,
If you could bring
I'd bring
10
somebody
things.
else.
Ah, dude, that's a cool answer.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing, bro. If you could bring 10 things on a deserted island, what would it be? 10 things. Go.
Oh, 10 things. Well, you gotta have some kind of tool. Might as well make it a multi-tool, right? Gotta have, some kind of way to stay dry or warm. And, hopefully there's plants on the island. Otherwise you want to bring some seeds.
You can bring
And
you can
other
bring
than,
four or five, six. You only got 10 things, so you can list like 3 or 4 seeds.
yeah. Okay. And then I'd bring a guitar because it'd be too hard to make an instrument. I really don't want to do that.
All right, if you could bring 4 or
And,
5 seeds, what would you grow?
if I was on an island, well, hopefully the coconut's already there, or there's some stuff already there. So I'd probably want to bring some stuff that the island doesn't naturally have. But I'd bring some kind of fruit-bearing tree, um, maybe some kind of berry. I'd bring sweet potatoes and some kind of leafy green or broccoli, and that would honestly probably be enough. I could live off that stuff. There might be leafy greens on the island, you know. There might be sweet potatoes on the island.
Man, oh man.
I don't really know
And so what does
what
Ohana mean? What
what
does
is.
Ohana mean? What does Aloha mean? What does Mahalo mean? Without giving away too many secrets, what do those Hawaiian words mean?
Um, think the most controversial would probably be aloha because people tell you it means a lot of different things. but so does love. Love has a complex meaning for a lot of people, and so most people just say aloha means
I thought
love,
aloha meant
but
hello.
like it does, and that's really just what they lead with in Hawaii. They lead with love and they close with love. So it's more of a heart-centered, intentional expression. It's basically like hello, like hello, but from the heart, and goodbye, you might say, from the heart. It's associated with breath. Um, in Hawaiian culture, breath is really big, and that's why haole, the ha is the breath. It's shared by aloha and haole, but haole in Hawaiian really means like without breath or breathless one. It was meant to kind of poke at or differentiate between somebody who is from their community who is centered in breath and then somebody who seemed to be without breath from like European society. It was more so because breath was just more focused, Eastern practices were more focused or more practiced by Polynesian and um, Hawaiian peoples, just the people that had settled Hawaii before um, white man came here, were much
Captain
more
Cook.
influenced by before Captain Cook. Yeah. The thing is, Hawaii probably has, that's what I said, some unwritten and whitewashed history, and Captain Cook is prime example of that. He is definitely a real person, had significant influence on the Hawaiian
And
Islands,
Alaska as well,
but
man. There's
he,
statues of him in
he
the
was
Eskimo
he
village.
was not right. He wasn't the first one though. He wasn't the first person to come and explore these places. There were indigenous peoples, and there were people that came here from all over the world way before that. The Vikings, uh, circumnavigated the globe. They went everywhere.
Ancient
So that's
Africans,
another
all
thing to
that
really
jazz.
consider. Right. Maybe Aztecs and there were peoples from all corners of the world that circumnavigated the globe, which really puts us in a different
I'll give it
historical
to the
mindset
Portuguese,
than any institution will accredit. No institution will verify these stories because they don't have the proof, or if they were showed the proof, it would be in contradiction of their agenda and the way they teach their curriculum. So they'd have to either adapt and accept it, or they'd have to teach the way they were until there was sufficient evidence for them to make a informed decision. But a lot of the time, the agenda outweighs the informed decision, and it's really about coaxing people into different jobs and limiting people's exposure to controversial ideas because they've realized that having open mind is a gateway to insubordination for people that want to maintain
I'm willing to
control.
say the Portuguese were
And
first. I'll give them that, but I do acknowledge the fact that there just may very well be somebody else that came there first. And yeah, you're right, man. The Vikings were expert navigators, and the ancient Phoenicians, the Egyptians. There were many kings in Africa that sent out ships, not just east but also
don't
west.
sleep on the Polynesians, man. The Polynesians did it and they rowed the
Well, man,
entire
Hawaiians
time.
are
Most of them were
Polynesians. Hawaiians are
rowers.
Polynesians. So we're talking about the people who first came into contact with the Polynesians. But no, yeah, the Polynesians may very well be the best navigators of all time. I mean, think about it. Sailing from Australia all the way to Hawaii, um, just following the stars. And, the ocean is one of the most powerful forces on the world. That's no easy task. And I'm sure many ships drowned. So the few ships that did make it all the way to Hawaii, they found paradise on earth. And they developed one of the most interesting cultures known to man. And they have their own lifestyle. They have their own faith, value, belief systems. And it's miraculous that it's survived this long.
You brought me there, man. You brought me there. Like I was imagining if I was a Polynesian, explorer, adventurer, somebody who was following the stars. And then I found Hawaii. You know, it made me really, really appreciate this place because that's how I kind of felt like I came on a whim almost too, or directed by the stars or directed by something greater than myself to come here. And I've learned so many lessons that I'm grateful for. I've met so many beautiful people here too. It really is a place of beautiful people. It's not just a subjective, objectification of anybody here. Yeah, there's tons of babes, you know, there's just attractive, wealthy people, you know, people that have it well, you know what I mean? They're, healthy and protected and thriving. You know, we're living in abundance out here, but in a lot of ways, people are being pushed out. It's not been hard for me, or it has been hard. It has not been easy for me to stay here. It's hard for a lot of people that are born here to stay here. Um, I haven't paid rent. If I had to pay rent since I've been here, I wouldn't have been here. And, you know, like I said, I made a lot of sacrifices. I lived out of a van for a while, for 2 years, 2.5 years. I had different cars that I lived out of for another 6 months. And then there's been times over, you know, probably a whole space of a year where I was living out of a tent on a
Camping on the
beach or up
beach,
on the top of
man.
the mountain in the
What
woods.
does that look like? Before you
Um,
discuss what mahalo means and what ohana means, because it sounds like it took a long time for you to find out what just even the truth of
so
aloha means.
I got a little bit sidetracked. But yeah, aloha is beautiful. It's really, like I said, it's integral to understanding Hawaiian culture is to understand really what aloha means. Because once you understand that, you understand why Christianity was such a success here
So,
too.
what was it
Because,
like living
um,
on the beach of Hawaii? That sounds like a dream come true, and there's a lot of people on the mainland that are thinking about bugging out and just living off the grid and camping on the beach in Hawaii, which is, you know, you did it in an ethical way, a sustainable way. You cleaned up a lot of garbage and trash on the beaches of Hawaii everywhere you went. You know, every time we went hiking, one of the main things you did was, you know, try to spot out different garbage, human waste, and pick it up. You're addicted to helping Mother Nature. But just for anybody who is camping, whoever they may be or however they may live, what's that like camping on the beach of Hawaii? You mentioned you were robbed.
Man, that's the way. If you're going to take a vacation to Hawaii, I mean, I didn't intend to spend one day in a hotel. They forced me to spend 10 days in a hotel quarantining. But that's what I intended to do come out here was sleep in the beach or find a place in the woods and just, you know, set up a hammock for the night. You know, if you're going to come out here, it is expensive. Bread is $13 or $15 a loaf of bread. You know, you want, you know, a nice loaf of bread. You want to pay for Dave's organic bread? Yeah, $13. You want a loaf of organic sourdough? It's $15. So don't sleep on the cost. And why in the world spend so much money at a resort that you're probably not going to spend too much time at because being outside in nature is so beautiful. Get a van or rent a car and sleep in your car or bring a hammock, sleep on the beach. There's plenty of places you can camp and pay $3 a night or, you know, even just, you know, covertly put up a hammock and go unnoticed for one night. I mean, it's not hard to go under the radar if you're discreet. You don't have to, you know, make a big scene and set up a giant camp on the beach. But if you want to do that, like I said, $3, you got a campsite. You can come back, leave all your stuff in your tent, and you can trust it because there's other people living down there. You make a couple friends, and, you know, it's very social. And I guess that'll bring me to Ohana because Ohana means family and people will treat you like family right off the bat. You know what I mean? They'll treat you like your family and
They'll give you
sometimes
the benefit of the
it's a little
doubt. They'll
bit
give you the
fake. You
trust
can,
first till you break it.
yes, you get that here. And like I'm from the South and I consider it Southern hospitality. Southern hospitality is real in Hawaii as well. Hawaii is the most southern state and, I didn't really expect it to be so country here on Kauai.
It's like
But
the
I
most
really love it. I think
underdeveloped
that's one of the aspects that's
island,
kept
right?
me
I mean,
here.
all the other islands are pretty heavily populated. They got a lot of big cities. In Kauai, it's still country bunkins out there.
Yeah, Molokai isn't as developed as Kauai is. You know, Kauai is just a little bit bigger and, you know, has a city or, you know, town, Lahui. And, you
That's
know,
where the
I haven't been
airport
to
is.
those islands, but I've heard I've heard Molokai is the most country, Hawaiian island, and I've been to Oahu, and I can tell you it's not Oahu. But Oahu wants to be Japan, and it's just never going to be Japan. Um, yeah, I think the most wholesome experiences you can have in Hawaii are really on Kauai, on Maui, and on Big Island. I think those are the three. If you're gonna come here, try to target one of those three islands first. Oahu is something, if you've been to LA, you've kind of seen it. If you've been to a city before, it's concrete jungle. You can get out of the concrete and see more jungle, but it's still more concrete jungle than anything over
So
there.
after hiking around the volcano a few times, living on the beach, and checking out the waterfalls in the jungle, what does mahalo mean?
And mahalo is just gratitude. It means thank you. And if somebody says mahalo to you, you can say aole pilikia, which means no problem.
Wow, amazing, man! Sounds like Hawaii was a spiritual awakening for you. And there were some dark times, but with all that shadow, there must be a light. There must be something worth looking forward to. Now we're up to date. Where are you right now, man? How are you living right now? At the beginning of this podcast, we're talking about the things you're growing. Let the world know, man. Talk about your compound, your little settlements in the jungle, your hippie commune.
It's not none of those things. I'm staying with a friend who I have made an agreement. I'm kind of helping him caretake his place. I help him do some yard work. I planted a garden. He has birds and can't always take all of his birds with him. He's got too many parrots, and so I watch the birds while he's gone and take care of some other stuff. I installed some copper pipes, but like I said, I'm growing all kinds of food. I'm growing corn and arugula and quinoa and okra, tomatillos, tomatoes, sweet potatoes, sweet peas, cucumbers, peppers. I got some basil and cilantro. What I got? Man, all kinds of stuff. Jalapenos.
And
I
what's that
planted so
like?
many things and bought all kinds of seeds.
Mentally, physically, spiritually. What's that like when you're
Oh
living
man,
off the
it's so
land, when you're in
rewarding.
alignment with the nature?
So holistically, totally satisfying to supply yourself with the nutrition and things that you need, to not be reliant on handouts. I'm on EBT right now. I have food stamps, but it's because I haven't really had the most consistent work. When I do work, I get paid well, but I don't have rent right now, and so I've tried to work less and really maximize my time where I have these rewarding energy outputs. I put my energy into growing new plants, and then I can just sit back and watch it grow, and it's just so rewarding to wake up every day and see the corn get 2 inches taller. It's just watching this stuff grow. It's great.
Amazing.
I've had a garden. I will say, growing up, my parents grew gardens, and the garden in my parents' backyard in Alabama, I'm sure both of them have gardens that are overgrown. And it's funny because, my dad just bought a house a while ago, and I don't think he's planted anything where he lives. And my mom has had a garden since, we moved into that house when I was 13. And I think we grew stuff that year, or maybe, for a couple years after that, but we didn't really grow that much. My dad did kind of have some kind of work ethic where, he wanted to grow a garden, but it wasn't his greatest passion. Um, and eventually I think my parents they got kind of complacent, and they fell into comforts that were allowed to them by, sacrifices they made. They worked really hard, and they started to make enough money where they didn't have to rely on, they didn't have to supply their own food because they could buy it. They could afford to buy it, but really, I think if they looked at their finances now and they realized how much they could have saved if they did grow that stuff and how much reward really was lost, I don't know if they would have been more true to growing their own food. But they were just never in fear that the government was not going to take care of them, or the government was going to put food out on the market that wasn't safe. My parents have always had a lot of faith in institutions that I've learned to distrust. So I'll be growing my food my whole life, and when I have kids, they're going to eat food from my garden and from our garden. So.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is what living off the land in Hawaii is all about. That's what leaving the mainland to live in Hawaii is all about. Living in alignment with Mother Nature, and just health is wealth. You are what you eat, man. What a journey, and we're going to learn more about your struggles, your triumphs, and everything else in between in the episodes to come. But yeah, man, love to hear it. Really, you can't learn everything about Hawaii either in one podcast. So hopefully we pick up what you're putting down, and I know you got a lot of hidden gems to share. So yeah, awesome to have you here on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna be posting some content, and people get to see a little bit of the life that I've found for myself and made for myself out here. And regardless of what state that I'm in, I've constantly bettered my relationships with other people to the point where I now feel like I have a security net. I've had some really hard points being here, living out of a car, not having work, just being broke. I've been robbed multiple times. I had my passport stolen even just recently, and I believe that I've been targeted by some really nefarious, maybe even organized crime or corrupted
Before we get into today's daily
power.
topics, we're going to talk about San Francisco, California, USA, and things happening around the world. Before we get into that, do you want to talk about some of the more bureaucracy elements of Hawaii? Sounds like you're getting treated like a colonizer while at the same time getting poverty taxed, and now you have a lot of bad actors, whether they're witches, bad lawyers, bad dentists. You have some people going after you simply because you have found that aloha, that ohana, the mahalo on the island.
Well, maybe that is true, but I won't say that that's the reason why. Because it just doesn't make sense. That seems like a false equivocation. Really, the reason why is because so many other people have come here and abused what they thought they knew about aloha. And I kind of got lumped in with some people that, I don't know, I got treated like somebody I got mischaracterized. And, in an mischaracterization, there's slander, there's different elements of mischaracterization, but really it has to do with people importancizing or drawing importance to me, but not alluding to why, and really just creating a provocative stirring the pot, creating controversy around me. And there, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for me to dispel any false, because I can prove it allows me to prove myself. It's been a very spiritual path for me, and Hawaii has just played a role that I don't think that that really represents the state or the community. It represents a demon that I've been fighting. And yeah, it is bureaucracy in a lot of different ways. It was so outside of just the state of Hawaii, the state of Alabama, the state of California, the state of politics and society in the United States, the state of the Union. And there's been a lot of things that have been happening behind the scenes that have been affecting all kinds of facets of our daily life. And it's this arch demon, and it's Satan. It's evil. It's true evil. And there's a war of good and evil going on. Not for me to draw importance to evil, because really this only happens when you align yourself with truth. Do you find a true enemy? And, because if you're aligned with negativity and falsehood, anybody that you find to be your enemy, how are you going to be so sure? You're lined with deceit. You are a lie. You're living a lie that way. If you live in your truth, then anything that comes against you will be naturally the way it is. If some force, manifests against you while you're living in your truth, then it is part of your spiritual arc and your purpose to fight that evil. God, when you dedicate your life to God, that's kind of something that happens. And I think like too many people dedicate themselves to God and have a misalignment when they do so. And really, it's very pure. It's all intention. It's bigger than words. It's not, if you're an atheist, it's not God then. It's goodness. It's aligning yourself with what is right.
And some of
Like I
the
said,
some of the
truth.
bad apples
And if
on
you're
the
not aligned
island,
with
they're getting
truth,
triggered because you're coming to the island, you're making music, you're living off the land, you're spreading peace and love, and these bad actors, they're taking advantage of the communal trust of the island, and I think they see you as someone who will see through them, and they see you as a threat, and they've been retaliating a lot, man. What's that spiritual warfare look like?
I maybe am humble and patient enough to let most of it go under the bridge. But I've had to file a lawsuit for unpaid wages, and now I'm considering another different lawsuit because I've had some slander affect me from being able to buy my groceries and even go to the dentist that I normally go to. It's become really ridiculous. It's because people don't want to allow you any kind of regular comforts if you don't pay rent. People are trying to tax people, and I think there's an agenda where some people are literally being paid to create hardship for others, um, just to so that they
Or
can
they might
leverage
very well
privilege.
want your
And there's a lot of,
opportunity for some way or another, you know?
yeah, well, I've had people steal my opportunities directly, and I have to say it is the worst. Spiritual robbery is something that, the Bible talks about. Bible says, about spiritual robbers. It says, um, I forget what it actually says, but it talks about them, and it basically says you're protected in Jesus. They can't take from you you know, what God has given you. They can't take your greatest gifts. They can't take the greatest things that you have. You could have your entire house burned down. You could lose everything. You could be broke, but you have a profound experience and the ability to negotiate that, to leverage that for what it is. Not that you want to say my house burned down, but when you got to say your house burned down, or when your house burned down, you don't got shit and you got to explain why you're at where you're at. You can live your truth. You don't have to worry about living a lie when your house burned down. You know what I mean? You can just say it and people will take pity on you. People will understand and they'll help
Yeah, I
you.
know what it's like to lose
That'll
everything in a
show you
house fire.
God.
My house burned down.
God will come out of the woodwork when you have the worst things thrown at you. When you have the worst things happen, people prove people have proven themselves. Like, this world isn't all bad. I've had the worst kind of things happen to me, but most of the time, I won't say all the time, I've been through some long stretches of hardship because people just made my life hard and there was no, return on it, I felt
But
like.
house fires,
But it's all led me to
house
where I
fires
am, and
aren't
I'm
as
grateful to be
common.
where I am now.
House fires aren't as uncommon as you may believe. It's actually become quite a frequent occurrence in our country lately. There's been a lot of wildfires in Oregon, California, and especially Hawaii with the Honolulu. No, not the Honolulu. Maui. Uh, Lene. How do you say that word?
Lahaina.
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 Beautiful, amazing town.
That, that was a laser. I swear that was a laser weapon.
Maybe, man.
That was a
Maybe,
weaponized
but what I
satellite.
wanted to say
It was a
was
weaponized
there are
satellite.
thousands upon thousands of families who have experienced, losing everything they have in a house fire. And I don't think it's something people bring up lightly for pity or for any sort of spiritual advantage. I think it's sometimes people just want to share that because they want to say, hey, it doesn't matter what you have. God can take it all away one day and the next day give you everything you ever asked for. But when you're talking about spiritual robbers in the Bible, a few verses that stick out in mind for me, John 10, they come to steal, they come to kill, they come to destroy. That's frickin' California in a nutshell. And I guess a little bit of that's happening in Hawaii. Spiritual robbers, they're disguising themselves as good people, which are some of the people you're encountering on Kauai, and they want your opportunities, and some are even successful at taking those opportunities, but you're not given into hate. You're fighting hate with the power of love, and that's why I think you're going to overcome these obstacles, man. These challenges are nothing. I think God has already put you there, and you're on your way. And maybe at first, when you were vulnerable, they tried to devour you. They tried to plant lies in the community about your character. I've only ever seen you working, man. No matter what odd job it was or where you're at, every day you're out there working, man. So no one can say anything about you, except for the people that are lying about you. These spiritual robbers, they're spreading lies. And it's sad. Who knows what they've actually said, just compared to what you do know, right? And besides spreading lies, they are essentially sowing distrust about your name. It's sad, really, but I think it's also beautiful to see you overcome such adversity. And I think when these people actually talk to you, man, they get to know you. They'll see you're a good guy, and people only hate what they don't understand, right? And I think when you show them a smile, play them a song on your guitar, there's no way anyone can hate that. But except, of course, the bad apples on the island, who knows why, man? What could be the motivation?
Man, haters gonna hate. You know what I mean? There are hateful people in this world, and they're gonna
Yeah,
hate. You know what I
dude.
mean? They're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate it. That's really it. You know what I mean? The haters are gonna hate. You gotta realize that that's just one of the truest statements ever said, that they exist and that's what they do. You know what I mean? They're haters. So they could not be haters. They could change their game, change the game plan, and that would just, that'd be more in alignment with what the world needs. We need less hate. A lot of people choose to be haters all the time. Sometimes I've been a hater, and, we need to learn to listen more, because hate is the divider.
And
It's
would
gonna
you
pull
say
us
that
apart.
light
It's gonna
attracts
separate us.
darkness?
It's not gonna bring us together.
Would you say that
Yeah, light does attract darkness.
light attracts darkness? Because I've noticed the more genuine somebody is, or somebody that's peaceful, that doesn't really, choose a war path, so to speak, they kind of attract the worst of the worst. And I think you're kind of choosing this non-violent path when it comes to combating these people who are waging spiritual warfare on you. It's like they're playing themselves, trying to play you, right? And you learn who's real and who's fake in the end. And I feel like you've met a lot of
I
great
really
people.
want to make. There's a song by a girl named Eliza, and they're trying to make me angry, but they can't make angry. Just keep loving, and
So
that's it. You know what I mean?
essentially, what you're saying is
They try to
truth
bring
is
me down, but
louder
they
than the
can't bring me
noise.
down.
The truth is louder than the
They can't
noise.
bring me up.
That love is more positive than all the lies. People get to know you better, right? So, who are some of the good, or do you want to talk before, because we're going to talk about San Francisco. I'm going to be going on a really long monologue when we get there, because there's just so much to unpack, but I'm going to speed roll it out. Don't worry. Do you want to talk about all the cool people you've encountered on Kauai before you talk about all the bad apples, or vice versa?
I mean, I'd just rather not even talk about other people because that's just kind of more of my MO.
I hear you, man. Is there anyone you want to shout out or show some love to who may be listening to the show who don't care?
Yeah, maybe I can help my roommate make some sales. So if you're ever on Kauai, you should definitely try to find Shell Dave and buy some Shell jewelry. They're really awesome
Yeah,
local
man. This
shells.
this episode is sponsored by Dave
Halilani
Shells.
house shells
Tell
and
us,
sunrise
tell
shells.
us about Dave Shells, man. This episode is sponsored by Dave's Shells in
They're
Kauai.
all hand picked. Each
Give us the
one
sales pitch. Give
is
us
a
the sales pitch from
gemstone.
the top. Dave's Shells.
Maybe I can just get Dave to give you the sales pitch. Give me 1 second.
Awesome, man. Aloha, Dave. Aloha, Dave from Hawaii, man. Tell us about your seashells. I think everyone and their moms is interested. They want to buy one of your shells, man.
Just wait. He's not here. Not here.
Where's this guy at, man?
I have to walk over to his tiny house.
Ah,
Hey, Dave, can you give me your sales pitch? No, like sales pitch? Sales pitch. Because we're doing a podcast and we wanted to give you a shout out so you could maybe get some free advertisement. Ready?
tell
Yeah,
us
I'm
about your
ready.
sales,
These
man.
are Kahililani shells. These are Kahililani shells. They're also known as Ni'ihau shells. The Hawaiians used to make jewelry with these shells and used to use them for their currency. Today, they're only considered gems and insurable if they're all perfect shells. 80% of everything we find on the beach is broken. We have to get our hands and knees, pick them one at a time with tweezers, looking at each shell and making sure they're perfect to find the 20% that isn't broken, because only perfect shells will lay flat and uniform to where you can run your fingers down and feel no chips or breaks. There are 10 different colors. There are seasonal shells. We find 5 the colors on Anini Beach during the winter. 4 the colors I source from the island of Ni'ihau. The sand colors all year round is the only shells in the world that act like a chameleon when they're alive. They emulate the colors around them for camouflage from their predators. So the sand color is the more prevalent color. When it comes, the other colors, a little more rare and elusive to find those shells on the beach. Most of those shells die with other creatures that poke holes in them, consuming the animals out. So we're basically finding shells that die natural from my gem quality shells. I use a 50-pound test fishing line for my string to guarantee all my work. Stores double or triple most of my prices as stores do not make them. So when you're in the stores, you always want to check the quality test by running your fingers down. If you feel any chips or breaks, they're made of broken shells. One broken shell in a piece takes away the value of the whole piece. These are sunrise shells. They're very sought after shells because they're abundance of colors and rarity found on the beach. People have been here all their lives and never found one of these shells. The reason is they live at 160 feet. They're an asexual animal. They reproduce on their own. Their flat side is the yellow side that they live on. Their other side is an orange and bumpy side. Their predators are an octopus, which will bite into the orange side, consuming the animal out. So you can imagine how long it takes for a shell to come from 160 feet to the beach. Usually we just find chips.
Awesome, man. And I know Valentine's Day is
And
coming
then
up, and people want to get their loved ones something nice for Valentine's Day. You got any deals or specials? What can people hope to get from you?
I have best deals on one strand bracelets for $60 and up. You won't find prices like that in any of the stores, as the stores have to double or triple most of my prices, as they have to buy them from somebody, and then they double or triple that price.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, you guys, if you want to get your mom something nice, grandma's coming into town, you want to get your
Thanks,
girlfriend
Dave.
something special this Valentine's Day, check out Dave Shell. We'll put the contact information in the description below. Grateful for all the love and support.
That's Shell Dave.
Amazing, man. Yeah, some of those shells go for like $200 just on their own, by themselves, not even in jewelry form.
Yeah, there are some very rare shells. I have a couple that I've been collecting my own on my hands and knees for a few months. I lived on a beach where they were washing up seasonally, and I spent a lot of mornings collecting shells, and I managed to fill up one jar. I mean, these are shells the size of the tip of a needle. You know, they're about the size of, 10 grains of sand put together. They're not very big. And, you really do have to make sure there's no chips on these little tiny shells. And I filled one bottle up, and it's worth a good bit of money if I turn it into jewelry and pick out. Even then, I tried to make sure I picked ones with no chips or breaks or holes. But a lot of these tiny shells, have tiny holes from tiny octopuses, and, they're not usable for the jewelry. So I had to pick out a lot of them. They are very valuable, and they're really pretty. You know what I mean? They come, like you said, in 10 different colors. And when you have a whole bunch of them, even the same color, there's a lot of variety of even pinks and oranges and burgundies.
They even kind of change colors almost in the sunrise and the sunset. I've seen these shells. It's like a pearl. It's honestly like a pearl sometimes. They're really beautiful,
They are
really
rated
nice
as a
gift
gemstone,
to
like
give
you
your
said.
family and friends. Check that out, you guys. All right, all right, all right, man. You ready to talk about San Francisco? Jesus. Before I get into it, man, what do you think about San Francisco? What did you experience the last time you were there?
Well, we've talked about this a lot, and it is a hellhole. I say the same thing every time. Downtown San Francisco, especially the Tenderloin, some of the rougher neighborhoods are just some of the worst places I've been in the entire country. Like the fentanyl on the streets, the degeneracy, the non-accountability of law enforcement. It seems like the people that are running the city don't genuinely care about
Would you
people.
say
They
there's like
just
a
care
lack of
about
an aloha in Ohana and
industry,
mahalo in
and
San Francisco?
there's an increase of cheap square cornered architecture and a decrease in genuine art and aloha. Yeah, there is no aloha in San Francisco. You really have to try to find it. I won't say that it's not there, but you really, really have to try to find it in that area. You definitely don't find it in the city. Um, but yeah, it's a miserable place to live. I'm glad that you got out of there, brother. And I hope that maybe you just stay in Brazil until I can come there and rescue you.
I gotta say, it's really nice being in Brazil. This place is paradise. It's got a lot of similarities, more similar than different from Hawaii. Like I said, it's a tropical paradise. It's a really nice place. Yeah, being in Brazil it's been a breath of fresh air. For those of you who know me, I've been in the trenches on the front lines of San Francisco for years, doing my best to fight the good fight. And, yeah, it's gotten out of control. It's really sad. Growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, I have personally witnessed, San Francisco go from being like the cultural capital of the world, all the art and the music, to the technology capital of the world, to what now seems like, unfortunately, the homeless fentanyl capital of the world. And it's really sad considering the fact that in the 60s there was this age-old notion, oh yeah, let's hitchhike to California. You had guys from New York, Florida, Detroit, Michigan, Boston, everywhere in between, West Virginia, you name it. And they were hitchhiking from the East Coast all the way to California to be hippies. And they had it good back then. There wasn't any fentanyl or anything like that. And a lot of these people, they came here with nothing. And they got a job. Within a few years, they were able to build a life for themselves. And they were able to save up money. And they were able to, settle down, get married, buy a home. And they built a really beautiful life for themselves. And I feel like the California dream was really present. And the American dream was really present in California. I think that's what California dreaming was all about. And right now we are witnessing a humanitarian crisis, the likes of which our country has never experienced. Gold rush is a thing of the past now. We are seeing the fentanyl rush. It's essentially a cycle of corrupt politicians who enable chaos and lawlessness for financial gain via fentanyl and other drugs through corrupt nonprofits and corrupt organizations who benefit from the suffering of the less fortunate on the streets, who then, of course, turn around and support these same politicians come election season. And every year it just the wheel spins bigger and faster, and it's getting out of control. 4,000.
So let me ask you a question.
Shoot.
Let me ask you a question. Before you get into some statistics, what's going on with Gavin Newsom? What's going on with his opponents, the people he's running against? What's the status of the race for governor of California?
Oh man, where to begin? So I have had the unfortunate pleasure of witnessing Gavin Newsom's fall forward, is how I would describe it. He went from being a local San Francisco supervisor to, the mayor of San Francisco. And before you know it, he's running for governor of California. He's connected to a lot of the old families in California, and a lot of these people have, some powerful connections to Wall Street. Just to say a name, Nancy Pelosi. Some say she has the mafia under her thumb. It's. So before we get into the governor race, Gavin Newsom, right, the worst governor in the history of California. He's thinking about running for president after destroying California, after destroying San Francisco. It doesn't take a lawyer or a doctor to, see with their own eyes, their five senses. Everywhere you look are the signs of the decline of Western civilization. I think he's most famous for being the most hypocritical governor during the pandemic. He forced children to wear masks, while at the same time he's at, restaurants like the French Laundry, partying, without a mask. So I think that was one of the first major events, besides, he slept with his best friend's wife, that just kind of just made him lose public trust. People don't really like the whole, do as I say, not as I do thing sometimes, right? On top of that, we are on the 10-year, take that back. We are on the 20th year anniversary of his 10-year plan to solve homelessness. Billions of dollars have been spent only for the situation to get worse. He's vetoing bills that support sober housing. These people want housing where paraphernalia is provided. We have a humanitarian crisis, which has been exacerbated by mass drug addiction. I'm not talking about cannabis, alcohol, or cocaine. I'm talking about fentanyl, crack, and meth mostly. And their solution is to pass out these things called harm reduction kits, which are essentially lunch boxes of all the paraphernalia you can ask for to use these drugs. That's their solution to the drug problem, is to give out all the tools and means to which to self-destruct. It's absolutely horrible. Harm reduction is causing more harm. Progressive policy is making everything progressively worse. Sadly, it's not just San Francisco, right? We're seeing the same thing in Los Angeles, San Diego, Eureka, Crescent City, Arcata. You and me have taken a few journeys along the West Coast, man. You've seen it yourself, and not just the big cities, but the small towns. Fentanyl is widespread. It's a poison. I think Gavin Newsom is such a bad governor that his lack of leadership, his incompetence, his corruption, it's spreading to other states. Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Washington, Montana, Colorado, even Texas, right? They're all having to, deal with the widespread problem that is California. It's insane, really, and it really is insanity because people won't stop voting blue no matter who. And there are problems with the Democrat Party. There's problems with the Republican Party, but I feel like the Democrat Party.
Well, let me
finish this
chime in
though.
because
I feel
okay,
like
go ahead.
I feel
Mine's
like the
relevant.
Democrat Party has passed the point of no return, and there's no fixing it. It's given way to communism and socialism, and even just sheer anarchy. Antifa, the whole 9 yards. It's absolutely horrible. And the Republican Party, it's not perfect, but I feel like the Republican Party can be redeemed. I feel like there's hope for the Republican Party. It can always be updated. But yeah, man, what were you gonna say?
Well, I'll just go ahead and comment on what you said last first, and then I'll backtrack. Recently, in the past year, I really have identified more with the Republican Party than the Democratic Party. And that's, identity politics. And I think it's not wise to invest in that stuff. But, my entire life up until then, I will say I probably more so, if I was going to support a party, I never supported either party, really. I voted for Bernie Sanders. I voted for Gary Johnson before that. I wasn't a supporter of either mainstream party because they're so corrupted. Both of them have been infiltrated by people with nefarious agendas from other countries and industries. It's corporations. It's really corporatism, and the corporatism has allowed a small niche of people with economic privilege to succeed and denied the ability of people to ascertain some kind of self-generated wealth. You know what I mean? The ability of people to acquire capital independently has been completely controlled and marginalized by corporatists that lobby for government and regulation. And you see that the small businesses are hyper-regulated and giant corporations are essentially not regulated.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what brings us to our next topic. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, our first ever guest speaker on the show, Sony Hill, coming to you live from Texas. Tell us, Sony, what are some of the downsides to communism and socialism? Why should America be concerned about the rise of communism or socialism in our country? And I know you've done a lot of research. You've read, countless books. You've written a few books of your own. You served in the military. Yeah, man, tell us, why should we be afraid of communism and why we should be working very hard to eradicate communism from our country?
Well, first of all, thank you for letting me speak. Just to give your listeners a background, I'm a Navy veteran. I'm from Dallas. When you look at the history of communism, it is soaked in oceans of blood. Well over 100 million people have been murdered by communism and socialism within the past, just in a little more than a century. And also at least 1.5 billion people have been enslaved by this evil ideology in the same amount of time. So it's derived from mainly 5 main, I call them dark elemental forces in the universe. First is atheism, Darwinism, materialism, the philosophy of struggle, and hatred. All this evil has coalesced to create this evil ideology, and it is truly godless. If I could describe communists and socialists in one word, that would be it: godless. In North Korea, as an example, no religion is allowed. Atheism is a state doctrine. If you try to teach the Bible in North Korea, you get killed, and everyone who listened to you or even owns a Bible gets killed. Okay? I mean, it is really that bad. Now, this evil infiltrated the United States of America in the early 20th century, and it has spread like a malignant cancer throughout the country. It's in practically everything. Our government, our education, our entertainment. It's in the communications industry. It's in unions. It's even in some of the churches. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. You see it all the time. It's really, truly evil. And, the people that have actually lived under communism, socialism, and have escaped, have been warning Americans for years. I can link, accounts on X of several, people that have escaped from communism. North Korean defectors, people that were actual survivors of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China that killed well over 20 million people. And on and on and on. There's even some Cuban defectors as well. So
are there any examples at all of any successful communist attempt?
No.
In America?
Ever. I mean the closest one I've ever seen is China. But really they are
they have an interesting thing. They have democratic communism.
Well, communism comes in a variety of different flavors. Right? It began in Russia, and it spread from Russia to China with Mao. And so it's basically communism with Chinese characteristics. Okay? It also spread to Vietnam, same thing. Cambodia, and of course now it's not so much in Cambodia, but in Laos and all throughout in Korea for sure. It's communism but with different characteristics. And it usually starts with infiltration and agitation. It's what they work at day and night. It accounts for much of their success. They infiltrate and agitate their way into positions of power, and then once they seize power, they will never, ever willingly give it up. Ever. You have to force them out. And in the case of...
That's true of any power, anybody that takes power, I've found.
Yeah, it's the truth. And when you look at what has happened to the Democrats, just as an example, that party has been deeply infiltrated and overwhelmingly dominated by communism and socialism. You've got AOC, Bernie Sanders, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Zohran Mamdani, Cori Bush, and there's a list a mile long of Democrats that are basically, I call them useful idiots, for the Communist Party because that's pretty much what they are. Because what these people don't realize is, the people that are in charge are never going to share power. And if they feel like their power is being threatened by the other communists, that's when purges happen. Like in Russia with Stalin's Great Purge. Stalin felt like people were threatening his power of control, so he had the NKVD go hunt people down and murder them. By a lot. Okay, I mean, we're talking major league mass murder here, folks. It is truly evil.
And why is that? Why are so many communist or socialist revolutions, they begin with promises of equality, but it's like they always end in totalitarian control and genocide?
Excellent question. The reason why is because communists and socialists sell this grand pie-in-the-sky utopian vision where everyone has everything that they need, everything that they want. It's a paradise, right? This image that they sell. But unfortunately, what people find out too late is this utopian vision is a bait on an extremely lethal hook to the tune of over 100 million people murdered. And actually, that number would be even higher if you include forced abortions. So it is truly reprehensible. I mean, the Nazis are unquestionably horrible. Okay. The Nazis are horrendous. But compared to the communists and socialists, the Nazis were amateurs in terms of murdering people. Communists and socialists
Yeah, they're not getting this
are
on.
worse than the Nazis by orders of magnitude. It is, I mean, research it. Research the history of communism and socialism, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's a research, the Katyn Forest Massacre. Stalin used the NKVD to massacre over 15,000 Polish officers and intellectuals. This is like 1939, 1940, just before they invaded Poland. So, and then they blamed the Nazis for it. And it wasn't until the fall of the Soviet Union until the truth finally came out and the Soviet Union finally admitted what they did. So that gives you an idea what you're dealing with. And the Khmer Rouge, communists and socialists in Cambodia, they murdered at least 1/4 of Cambodia's entire population at the time in the killing fields. I mean, men, women, children, babies, man. I'm talking, they used to take babies, little infants, and they would grab them by the legs and slam their bodies against a tree and kill them.
The killing fields don't sound like a nice place to be. And it seems like communism or socialism, whatever the cup of tea may be, it seems like it can only poison us. And I'm wondering about the dangers of communism and the rise of socialism in America. If communism or socialism replaces individual freedom, with state control, right? What happens to America? Like our liberty, our faith, our free enterprise, the markets. What's going to happen if we don't? They got that socialist running for mayor in New York City. What's going to happen?
Once the communists and socialists seize power and control, right? Basically, they use people like toilet paper. Okay, I mean, I hate to use that analogy, but that's pretty much what they are. Once their usefulness has come to an end, they either dispose of them or they enslave them. A lot of times, and that you're seeing a lot of that, and especially in China. China uses they have this social credit system. I don't know if you've seen it or heard about it.
It's another tool of control, and it's actually creating the first rise of homelessness in China in a long time. There's like so many people that have been excommunicated from society simply because their social credit score wasn't 100% like their neighbors. I think it's insane, right? And it's like our liberty, our faith, our free enterprise. It's all in question, right? And it's almost as if the communist or socialist promise of equality actually might lead to everybody being equally poor or equally suffering, which I don't think is a solution at all.
Yeah.
Historically, that's been extremely true because that's what happens. Look at Cuba. Actually look at Venezuela. Venezuela's a better example. Hugo Chavez, the Venezuelans, even with the example of Cuba, they still voted for Hugo Chavez, right? And when he got in there, all the wealthy socialists bailed out. Capitalists bailed out. They're like, the hell with this. We know where this is leading. And so a lot of the wealthy, business owners left, right? And then, the country started to go downhill. And then next thing you know, the country started to go down. And then Chavez died. I think it was 2013 and Maduro took over. And then the country took a nosedive and went straight down the toilet. And now you see what their country has become.
Yeah, it's almost like the cartels running the show there. And God bless all the opposition there in Venezuela who are doing their best to try and liberate the country from total socialism, and China's, betting for the other side probably. I think if socialism and communism takes place in America, it will seriously impact our innovation. It'll impact small businesses, family-owned restaurants, small mom-and-pop shops. I'm not even too sure just creativity will survive in the system. If they don't like your music.
Wait. Darren, can I interject? I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to say that it already exists in our country. We've enabled
Yeah, that's
loopholes in
why we're talking
through
about it. It's like
corporatism.
really
Through
prevalent in San
corporatism, I know.
Francisco.
Well, no, it's already existing. You know what I mean? Look at big tech, and look at, you want to talk about communism and socialism. Look at big tech and social media. You know what I mean? Look at, because historically what these things are doing is they're trying to equalize and make people complacent with what they have. They're trying to make people feel like millionaires, but be slaves. You know what I mean? And that's what inflation is about. That's what a whole bunch of the things that we have going on right now are all because we've already accepted this stuff. We've written it into law. We've allowed these companies to steamroll small businesses and, Amazon and, like that I mean, we are in a global economy now, and China is the biggest part of it. And China is communist, and it's affecting all of us. We really do see it. That's why Trump put tariffs on products, because he wanted to differentiate our economies. He wanted them to be independent of each other. But the thing is, we need to be growing our own crops, and we need to be making our own American products a lot more. We need to be allowing Americans to buy homes. The housing market has to change. The entire, like all of the institutions that he said communism can infiltrate. It already has attempted to. The education system, our healthcare system, and our government, our courts, you know what I mean? How things are decided. COVID was it was a ploy. Everybody knows it was a ploy, but nobody sees it as a underhanded dig to invite a Trojan horse for communism. People haven't really called it that, because that would just be like, fluff to a lot of people. People would say, oh, you're just using inflammatory language. You know what I mean? But really, that's probably true.
Everybody in
I
China's
experienced
wearing a mask.
fascism here in Hawaii. I expect, like the hotels benefited from me through COVID. COVID benefited them. David Ige, the governor of Hawaii, a Democrat, signed a fascist government mandate, which forced people to use the Hawaii Safe Travels program and either be PCR tested and prove that they were negative to enter the state, or to, sort of provide a negative COVID test, or to have a vaccine. If you're vaccinated, you know what I mean? And that enabled that enabled people to force a vaccine upon people that were trying to travel, and, all the health complications. It's theft of of our freedom, of our health, of our safety, of our sovereignty. And yeah, couldn't be anything more than fascist or anything less than fascist or communist. You know what I mean? And it was enabled by people that used authoritarianism to push their agenda. And regardless of what party you say that, the people that pushed it came from, because they came from both sides. But
Yeah, and at San Francisco, and no more is socialism or communism prevalent in the United States of America than in San Francisco. We have corrupt politicians who have enabled chaos and lawlessness via fentanyl through corrupt nonprofits and corrupt organizations who benefit from the suffering of the less fortunate on the streets, right? And they have
that's an extortion of people's families and family resources too.
absolutely
There's a
no
lot of families that
restriction.
try to get their kids off the street, but the states don't care. And then, you bring them to rehab, and the state is trying to push pills on them and say that they're, mentally ill, and that they need some kind of pharmaceutical for life because, they were committed as
Look, they
as a
really
drug
should
addict.
be
Or,
compelled
then they're
into
criminalized
asylums,
for their
and they should
behavior
be
instead
compelled
of,
into rehabilitation
treated as an
facilities.
addict with a
They should be compelled into asylums
mental
or a
health issue.
rehabilitation facility or the hospital or whatever they need to get help. But to be allowed to sit there day after day and self-destruct slowly on the streets, kids walking to school, it's totally unacceptable. And I really do, it's like the elements of communism and socialism in San Francisco, specifically when it comes to the homeless industrial complex, the fentanyl genocide. It's actually kind of crazy because the 4,000 innocent people in just the city of San Francisco alone, a 7-mile by 7-mile peninsula, have died from fentanyl in San Francisco between the years 2019 2025, right? That's like 2 people a day. And these nonprofits and contractors who receive, funding, so long as the crisis is continuing, it makes solving the homeless crisis, the fentanyl genocide, against their financial interests. They have no incentive of solving the problem, because if they perpetuate it, they'll be making more money, and it all goes back to greed.
I don't really know what a nonprofit is.
It's a for-profit.
You know,
A
everybody's
nonprofit
profiting
is
off something, whether they're for profit
oh
intellectually, they're
my
getting to
gosh.
influence people. They're creating a profit somehow. The nonprofit organization, any organized religion, is not technically a for-profit business, but they are profiting. You better believe
And
it.
it's like, when it comes to socialism or communism in San Francisco, it's kind of like the endless bureaucracy we are seeing, where it's just like the management, the consultants, the committees, the lobbyists, the politicians, the administrators, the doctors, the lawyers, they're all in on it. And that's exactly why what we seen a few days ago in downtown San Francisco, 10 fentanyl dealers were arrested. The judge let out all 10 of those fentanyl dealers the next day. That alone just shows they're not interested in solving this humanitarian crisis or ending the fentanyl genocide. It's absolutely horrible. It's like a collapse of responsibility. Nobody's being held accountable. It's like ollie ollie oxen free. Billions of dollars have been spent only for the situation to get worse. I think it's like $20 billion. They could have got everybody an apartment, they could have got them all new clothes, a cell phone, and even the rehabilitation they needed. They could have easily gone to a rehab, or, some kind of asylum or whatever they needed to get the help that they needed. But it all ties back to healthcare in our country, which, it's kind of crazy. Here in Brazil, they have healthcare, and in America, you want to go get a 10-minute checkup, it's going to cost you $10,000. God forbid you stay in the hospital for a day or two because you need surgery, or the doctor can't be in until the next day, or who knows what. But next thing you know, the bill's $100,000.
You know what's bizarre is the thing that I need the most, the healthcare that I really end up needing the most, is like a craniosacral Thai yoga massage. It's body work. I really need massage therapy. You know what I mean? That's really, and maybe some chiropractic, or, just people to work on my body to help me get my body into alignment and my energy unblocked, no blockages in the flow of energy in my body. And I think when people understand a real holistic health approach, when they're not so invested in a pharmaceutical approach to medicine, then we will have the ability for insurance to cover these things. But right now, I can't even get insurance to I have, the state of Hawaii provides healthcare. If you don't have it, HMSA Quest, right? It's a Medicare, and it's free. But I think that, and that's not every state, so I'm grateful that exists here, but it doesn't cover anything that I even really need most of the time. And when it does, I feel like the quality of health is dictated by the insurance that you
And
provide,
sometimes you get a
and
bad
tiered
doctor or a
service
bad
isn't something
nurse,
that should
and
exist.
that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
Right. I mean, sometimes you already have a bad doctor, a bad nurse, and you still need them to provide you the
Or you
best
at
service
least
that
need to
they
find a
can,
new
right?
doctor
But,
or a
like,
new
if the
nurse.
insurance is dictating how serious they take the patient, that's just, that's fascism and the destruction of what being human and caring for people, and having, we have a purpose. God put us here with a purpose, and I think our greatest purpose, each one of us finds out what it is individually, but it's still an act of service. We are here to serve
And while
each
we're
other.
trying
And
to
if you're not
find that
serving
purpose,
your
sometimes.
community, if you're not serving your fellow people, then you're not doing God's work. You're not doing something that the community even wants, If you're not serving the community doesn't want it. The police, whose job is to protect and serve the community, if they're not protecting and serving the community, they're not doing a
And
service that
and
I
and
want my
and
tax
listen,
dollars to
and
pay
on
for.
that quest, that self-discovery quest, on the journey of purpose, or whatever we may be doing, sometimes we fall down and we pick ourselves back up, but we have an injury and we need health care. And unfortunately, the healthcare system in our country sucks. And in California, good luck getting health insurance. good luck getting car insurance, homeowners insurance, fire insurance, flood insurance, any kind of insurance you can think of.
Yeah.
The last place you want to try and get it is in California. It's the worst place to get insurance. And like you were saying with the police,
Well,
hold on
insurance
now,
is a
like you were saying with
scam.
the
It shouldn't be
police,
something we need,
yes,
you
sir.
know?
And like you were saying with the police, uh, it's like in these communist and socialist countries where these regimes are failing, there are so many lawless small towns and just pockets of crime where there are no police. And in San Francisco, we're seeing the same thing. You know, go to 7th and Market, 24th and Mission. There's no law and order. We have dozens of people selling fentanyl. We have the cheapest fentanyl in the United States of America, just $4 a gram, cheaper than a loaf of bread, gallon of milk, gallon of gasoline. Right next to them is the fencer, right? And the collective stolen property of our community is being bartered for pennies on the dollar, right? And it's a two-tier hypocrisy, right? It's propaganda over results, right? And just the erosion of law enforcement. I don't think we need less cops. I think we need more black cops, Asian cops. We need more representation, people actually from the community who can regulate. I think we'll have. Um,
Yeah, but it needs to be internal. The cops need internal regulation. They have so many gangs internally. What they're doing behind closed doors, you know, their idea of, what do they call it? They call it, corrections. You know what I mean? Their idea of corrections in a jail has become so convoluted that the reason for jail is supposed to be to, hold people until they can be reacclimated to society, right? Or if they can't, then to hold them, you know, as prisoner. But I don't think that anybody that's done any crime is not also, if not instead, just mentally ill or have a mental illness. They committed a crime, but they did that because they were mentally ill and they didn't understand they did something wrong. You know what I mean? They literally had a deficiency that prevented them from acting like a normal, sane, mentally non-ill person. And because we have a standard in society and we just need to solidify American values, because when we do that, then we have we can have realistic expectations and the law isn't so subjective. You know what I mean? When we can all agree upon how we want to be treated and how to treat other people, it comes down to the golden rule. You treat others how you would like to be treated. And if the law isn't representing that and the police aren't representing that and the
district attorney,
corporations that
the
are serving or
judges.
supposed
If
to
we
be
don't see
serving,
top to tier,
every single person that has a purpose in this society, which I would argue could be anybody that's born and, you know, follows where their, you know, convictions lead them, those people, you know, all find a place. You know, we all find a niche in a society that is centered around service, because then people are finding the way. That's where they find their purpose. How can I serve my community the best? What would make me happiest to do? What would I find the most satisfaction in doing for my whole life? You know, that's a question we ask kids from the moment they can talk. What do you want to be when you grow up? You know what I mean? But what do you think the average person who's, you know, struggling with fentanyl or meth addiction, would say, even prior to or after they succumb to that addiction? If you ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? You know, if you were to ask them as a kid, what do you think they would have said? Do you think they would have said, I want to be a meth addict, or I want to be a fentanyl dealer, or what? You know, I mean, these people don't have that aspiration. Society breeds that in people. We are products of our environment. And our environment has become increasingly toxic. It's not educating people and inspiring them to do acts of service. It's inspiring them to take and to you know, to consume. You know, we've created a capitalistic consumer society, and it'll be the death of people, because they won't be able to provide for themselves. They won't be able to find their purpose, because they have been fed their purpose and they're addicted to consuming whatever people tell them their purpose should be.
while compassion is commendable, right? You know, these people are struggling with mental health, drug addiction, the whole 9 yards. Who knows what they went through growing up? This world's an evil place, and everything under the sun might have happened to somebody, and that's what led them to be on the streets. At the same time, we have families and tourists out here who aren't safe. There really are a lot of violent, drugged out lunatics out here who are running wild. They've been let out of the jail, out of the hospital, out of the asylum time and time again, a lot of the times the next day. And I've seen it firsthand. These guys will randomly assault people. And so, yeah, I feel like compassion's a good thing, but at the same time, there is a balance to be had, because one of California's greatest strengths was compassion, right? But right now it's kind of just been taken to the most far out extreme you can imagine, and there's a difference between helping people heal, right, or enabling their self-destruction. So when these corrupt nonprofits who are taking in billions of dollars that benefit from the suffering of the less fortunate on the streets, who have no incentive to help solve the problem or help these people because they see them as dollar signs, they are enabling their destruction by passing out these harm reduction kits and giving them all the means to self-destruct by providing any kind of paraphernalia they might need to use fentanyl or meth. And the policies are reflective of this enabling
Yeah, I
too.
agree. They should be
And
handing that stuff
it's
out.
almost like suicidal empathy, because it just completely ignores any common sense, any accountability, and it's kindness that kills, but not the good kind, right? And I feel like true compassion would set boundaries, or at least kind of intervene when someone's on the brink of death. Walking down the street in San Francisco, people have large open wounds. A lot of them have died and come back to life more than once. Tents lined up and down the block. Children on their way to schools, they're tripping over needles, bodies, government issued crack pipes that are broken on the ground, women giving birth on the sidewalks, stillborn babies being found in porta potties. I mean, I'm telling you, it's getting really bad out there. And I feel like California needs a reality check when it comes to our compassion, because if we want to help these people, I think honestly the best bet is a sober housing, a mental rehabilitation, drug rehabilitation. Some people just need to go to the hospital. They're just on their way out. They're dying and they're looking for something to ease their pain. Um,
I think all of our prisons should be rehabilitation centers. They shouldn't be prisons. They should be places where people
wow.
are educated. They're given a sober environment. They're given positive reinforcement of the good qualities they have, because there isn't a single person who I consider a bad person. I've heard this before, and I really do believe that we are all born in God's image. To be a bad person would be subjective, and you'd have to think of yourself that way, because what we are comes from within. So a bad person would really have to identify as a bad person. And I'm sure there are some people that would say, oh, I'm bad. You know what I mean? I'm Michael Jackson bad or whatever. But I think that's just a societal indoctrination as well. Not to blame MJ. I think that he was doing more good than bad when he even wrote bad, you know what I mean? And I think that he gave a stronger message against exactly what I'm saying than for it. But people have identified with bad things, and people do bad things. A lot of good people do bad things, and I think really the key to overcoming all of this negativity in our society and all of these bad moral qualities, like these false beliefs and indoctrinations that have only allowed people to take advantage of others and destroy the integrity of our justice system and the integrity of our institutions that should be ensuring our safety, like the FBI, the CIA, the FTC, the
FBI,
BBB, you name it.
yeah.
Like I said, I just
And
said FBI, CIA, all of these,
every tree has a few bad
they
apples,
all
right? Every
need,
tree has a few bad apples. No system is perfect. No government is perfect. But I agree with you 100%, man. We need more loony bins. We don't have enough loony bins, and
we
now
need,
our communities become an open air drug
yeah,
asylum. open air.
But I've been to a loony bin too, and I have to say that a loony bin isn't the solution. The way that our government has enabled big
No,
pharma to
dude,
take over these
we need a loony
rehabilitation
bin.
centers.
I
No.
have to respectfully disagree
But
with
do you know what they're gonna do? Okay, but this is the thing. A loony bin in the in the 50s,
you.
is not a loony bin today. A loony bin in the 50s, the worst medication they would have given you is probably like lithium. You know what I mean? That would have been the thing. And they still give that to people, but now they give that to people with all kinds of other fucked up pharmaceuticals. It is a human experimentation zone. Everybody that goes to a mental health rehabilitation that is state funded nowadays is going to a state funded eugenics facility.
Look. They
They torture people, dude. They're not doing good things
they
for
don't
people at
have
these
to.
places. They tried to force me to take pills
We
I
could
didn't need.
update the loony bins, make the loony bins more ethical, more efficient, and actually have a positive impact on these people's lives. Yeah, there's an extensive history of loony bins being actually more counterproductive than
Right.
having a positive impact.
There'd be a lot of people in and out because they'd realize that they were doing
I
something
don't
wrong.
care if
They would
they're
make
in
a
and out of the
correction to
loony
whatever their
bin.
diet
If
or
they're in and
whatever
out of
their.
the loony bin, that's better than them being in and out of jail and in and out of hospital. At the end of the day, we have thousands of violent, drugged out lunatics roaming the streets of San Francisco. You've seen it firsthand. Our restaurants are getting robbed. Our grocery stores are getting looted. They got to go somewhere, man. They can't be allowed to just roam around freely, attack innocent people. You know how many women I've seen get assaulted by these drugged out lunatics? They need to be compelled against their own will. And I don't know what the room looks like, but they need
They
to
just
be
need to
put
get
in a room.
fucking beat
They
up,
need to be
dude.
put
Like
in a
the
room.
world used to be different. If we saw somebody,
Dude,
like, and maybe I just
the
watched
world
too
was a lot
many.
harsher. Back in the day, these guys would get killed. These guys would get taken out, or back in the ancient Sparta days, they'd get thrown off a cliff, whatever, The people that were, a pain in the ass to their neighbors did not last long, man. And what we're seeing transpire in San Francisco is totally unacceptable. When women and children and elders aren't safe, when tourists aren't safe, we got to stick these guys in some kind of room, and they have to not be allowed to use drugs. They need to sober up. We need doctors. Yeah, it all goes back to healthcare. We need doctors that care. We need nurses that actually love these patients, and we need whether it's a rehabilitation facility or asylum or some kind of institution, what have you. They can't be allowed to use fentanyl next to the children's playground. They can't be allowed to continue looting our grocery store, and they sure as hell can't be robbed in our restaurants. And so public safety has to come first, man. Because when you release people who are violent, they're psychotic. Hey, and maybe it's not their fault. They're psychotic. They're mental health. They have drugs, right? They have an active addiction, and that comes with withdrawals that are hard to manage or makes them behave in ways that aren't compatible with modern society. But whatever the reason why, more people are getting assaulted. There's more property damage, and our quality of life in the community just continues to sink. Hospitals, jails, rehabs, asylums, they're discharging these people way too soon. The next day, they need a 48-hour 5150, 5250, something. And even that's not enough. It's just like a lack of care for the community. If there aren't any treatment plans, sober housing, if these people aren't supervised in the facility for a few weeks or a few months, the cycle is only going to get worse. And it's also affecting the quality of healthcare in our hospitals. Our emergency rooms are overfilled. I mean, the doctors.
Darren, I tend to agree with you, but I just have to I have to say, 5150, my parents had me involuntarily committed. It was because I had switched my diet. I had switched to veganism, and I was experiencing a B12 deficiency, and I was arguing with my mom a lot. COVID was happening. I was, stuck at home, and, I was trying to make music and she was trying to work at home. It didn't work. I started doing acrylic painting instead so that I could be quiet and have an outlet for my creativity. And I thought, I was completely in my own sanity, but I was in my own bubble and apparently, shutting myself off. I'm just saying, my parents, it wasn't hard for them to have me involuntarily committed on absolutely no basis. And they've admitted, they've apologized, they did the wrong thing. And they sent me to a place where the people that my parents trusted me to do something, like I said, it was a state funded, eugenics facility. And it was basically, they put me in a place where they entrusted me to doctors who were paid by the state, but it could be completely corrupted.
And
This
you were
entire
turned into a
place
test
was
dummy
just
for new medication and pills.
I was turned into a human lab rat for pharmaceutical medications, and I
The
was
dark
spiritually
side, yeah, this
sabotaged.
is definitely the
I
dark
was
side of
held
the
against
loony
my
bin.
will. Okay, well, I'm saying that, like if you're advocating for some kind of allowance for law enforcement to arrest people, the reason that people aren't being arrested in San Francisco or held long enough, if they are arrested, is because they're not being arrested for the right reasons. And if people did proper investigation, the police work that's being done is garbage. The garbage police work is leading to them being arrested and released.
Well,
But if
I
they
got a
had a
question about the
firm
police work being
reason for
done.
the
Do you think
arrest,
these police
then they could
officers are out
have
of their
evidence
mind?
and they
Because
could
think
supply
about
it
it.
to a
When there's
judge.
thousands
These
of
people
lunatics on the
they would
streets,
be
how many
rehabilitated
times are the
differently.
police called?
Even
How
if they
many
were
times are the
ordered
ambulance
released.
called? When there's thousands of violent lunatics on the street and they're assaulting innocent families and tourists, the police are called dozens of times a day chasing uh, violent, drugged out lunatics who otherwise belong in asylum. And when these guys aren't compelled into a hospital or rehabilitation, when they're not going to jail or whatever the hell they need to go, when they're let out by the judge or the doctor the next day, it's like these officers are having to deal with the same bad apples over and over again. I'll give you an example. Walter Quinn, white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, right? So to speak, every privilege one can think of. He's assaulted countless people. He's been arrested dozens of times, let out of jail, let out of the loony bin, let out of the hospital, and he always goes back to the streets. He gets on drugs and he goes on a violent rampage, and he's always on a warpath. You can look this up on X. There are dozens of videos of this
Who is this
guy,
guy?
Walter Quinn, just out on a rampage.
Is he a
No,
baseball player?
he might as well be, but no, he's a homeless tweaker. I hate to call him a homeless tweaker, but he's lost all respect. He's assaulted me, women, children. He's on. This guy is like Clinton, but like a million times worse, man. I'm telling you, this guy's a bad apple. So yeah, the police, the ambulance, the social workers, they're burned out, man. They've had to deal with these guys dozens of times, and the system won't put them down. So if this police work is sloppy, it's only because they've had to fill out the same form over and over again about the same guy. I would be losing my mind too if I was a cop. But at the end of the day, our community is losing trust, not just in law enforcement or the local government or the healthcare system. We're losing trust in our community in general. People don't want to go outside. They don't want to go shopping. They don't want to walk around. They don't want to go anywhere because it's especially at night. It's just not safe. When you have these like 6 foot, 300-pound dudes on meth with bats and guns and knives. One wrong move, or you look at them the wrong way, or maybe you cough or you sneeze, and next thing you know, you're murdered. There's been so many random acts of violence because of these drugged out violent lunatics. And then you have like just the fact our public spaces aren't safe. You've seen it in San Francisco yourself, as a traveling musician. I know you've seen these places, man. It's getting bad. I know what you're saying is true. These loony bins need to get updated. They haven't really changed much since the 1950s. People are getting some way, somehow lobotomized, whatever the hell that word is, right? But the cost of inaction, like not doing anything. We got a question from the audience. Sonny Hill, the floor is yours. The mic is yours.
Well, I was just going to say that, a lot of this is happening on purpose because under communism, they weaken a country first before they take it over. And they do this by
Correct.
dividing people. They divide people, into oppressors versus oppressed. And they also, infiltrate, like I said, like we were saying before, they infiltrate, everything. And it's probably, I would not doubt that law enforcement has been infiltrated. If you look at what's happening in Portland right now with the Antifa and stuff and what's happened to some of the journalists, you can't tell me that they're not
Undoubtedly.
our law enforcement right now. It is really horrifying, man. And
Not going to. I think they'd rather be slaves than realize that they could work for themselves.
My aunt and uncle have a garden, and they it cuts down their grocery bills substantially because they grow their own food.
Yeah, and then you can provide it to other people. You can trade to other people. That's the way it used to be. You know, you might only grow one crop because you could do it well, and and then you could trade for the other things that you need because you have one good crop.
Exactly.
But and
God
and
forbid
that was
neighbors
traditional
trade
farming
fruits
and
vegetables
agrarian
amongst themselves.
lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think everybody should be growing everything for themselves. You know, if you're buying your produce at Walmart, you're fucking up. You're doing it wrong. You're doing the wrong thing. It's not going to help you. You're subjecting yourself to all kinds of toxins. You know, Bill Gates is putting his dick in the food at Walmart. You don't want that shit.
Hell no. Yikes. That's funny though.
Yeah, man. This economy,
Yeah, I don't want that APL
American
shit.
economy, it's like we're one of the most, if not the most powerful economy in the world, but like for
Talk about people should be in jail. I mean, I don't care how much philanthropy he does. That guy should be in jail.
There's so much bad stuff. It's crazy, isn't it?
don't even get me started on Bill Gates. We'll talk about him in the next episode, man. But back to the economy. Before we get to the nitty gritty of the economy and finish up the podcast episode for the day, I gotta say the long-term effects of Bidenomics is real. The damage done by Biden on our great, beautiful country will take years to recover from, and it's not just our infrastructure; it's also our economy. Like I'm telling you, Biden. He fueled inflation unlike any other president. I would be comfortable saying the Biden era was the second Great Depression. I don't know how you guys feel about that or if you agree with me or not, but I would say
We might look back on it kind of like that. You know,
the
COVID
Biden
was a
era,
miserable
man.
time, and it was
Those 4
totally
years,
him.
brother, I'm telling you. Oh, I'm telling you, brother. I'm telling you, brother. Just to get a cheeseburger during the Biden administration was life or death. I was rubbing pennies just to get by. I turned into. I think that's one of the main reasons I turned to vigilantism during the Biden administration was just to eat, man. And it was weird because I'm fighting people who are stealing. A lot of them just want to eat. So I'm actually dumbfounded. I find myself dumbfounded considering, you know, just, I mean, I did everything except sell my ass to get a cheeseburger. I maintained my dignity and self-respect, but I found myself working on farms. I found myself laboring at construction sites. I found myself selling T-shirts on the corner. And the next thing you know, it turned into a website. And the pressure of just trying to survive during this second Great Depression really inspired me to invest in myself, because in order to get by, you had to have multiple revenue incomes. You couldn't just work a regular job. There's people, listen, during this Biden administration, there were people living check to check, right? And they had to use their first check to be able to afford gasoline just to get to work, to get to the second check. So, but they couldn't even do that because they had to pay rent. So a lot of the times these people would go to these payday shops, these payday loan shops. They're next to the liquor store. A lot of the times they're in low income neighborhoods, right? And these guys get an advancement on their paycheck just so they can get gasoline to go to work. And these payday loan advancements were taxed. You had to pay, a couple $100 over by the time your paycheck came to pay them off. So then you paid off the payday loan advancement and you got enough gasoline. Now you can go to work and get to work and work for 2 more weeks to get your check. And then all of that check goes to rent. And if you're lucky, you might have enough for food. So, I mean, the rat race really got pretty bad during the Biden administration. And I want to say, well, when we're talking about the economy, it's not all Trump. It's Biden had a heavy hand in a lot of the stuff we're still dealing with today. Whether it's the policies he enacted, whether it was the trade wars he started. These weren't trade wars that have benefited us, but rather his special interests and his pals, right? The blocking of industry, and he made the national debt just out the woo-wah, $5 trillion, right? So Biden, I don't know if I ever heard him complete a sentence while he was president. I'm not too sure I've ever heard him start or finish any sentences, let alone a subject and a predicate. And Biden, man, I don't like talking about him. I'm kind of sick to my stomach just talking about him right now. But yeah, back to the national debt. How can we solve the national debt? Because the cost of living is
Federally legalize weed, decriminalize drugs,
Yeah, you before I
rehabilitation
give
centers
mine, you
instead of
go. You
jails,
go actually. I want to hear your
and
solutions.
requirements for fast food companies to
Restart.
hire
I want to
rehabilitated
hear
people.
your idea on how to solve the national debt crisis. And then after you, Wilton, you, Sonny.
Basically a job pipeline. You get to identify people. If the CIA is going to be so involved in being up people's asses, then maybe they should go to jails and stuff and learn who the criminals are and then provide them with jobs. Monitor them if they're already not monitoring us. And then, just have a job pipeline, rehabilitate people and give them genuine opportunities so that they don't feel like they have to commit crimes to get ahead. There's too many people committing crimes that are like blue collar crimes. I worked for a nanny here on Kauai. She failed to pay me $2,000 of unpaid wages. I worked as a nanny. I said I worked for a nanny because she is a sleep coach and she helps parents, coach their kids to go to bed by themselves. And, it sounded like a genuine thing that, like a parent would need when I met her and she had told me what she did. And so I didn't question it. But the more I pried and I realized she wasn't paying me, she wasn't paying the people that, she was apparently enlisting to work for her and help her with her business of sleep coaching. She wasn't paying anybody. She was behind on all of her bills. Her car was getting, repoed, and she was resorting to posting on Facebook and Facebook groups and selling her surrogacy, which I think is just human trafficking. I don't know if that's not just child trafficking with some flair on it, like, oh, I'm a gay surrogate. But I realized that she was, a gay surrogate, and she was only having babies for gay parents, and she was charging $10,000 to carry a child to term just to be put up for adoption for gay parents. And this isn't somebody that's donating their sperm so that they can have their offspring because they're infertile. This is a gay parent that could never have a child, and they're getting a random sperm donor off of Facebook, who they're also paying out, I guess, for sperm donation, and or they're getting it for free, for sexual favors, and then selling this child. You know what I mean? I really thought of it as, I couldn't think of it how she thought of it, and this is what I'm talking about. This is, you can't see it can't be two different ways. It's one way or the other, and the law has to clearly state that. But the law has allowed too many loopholes for criminals to act and get right out of jail, to allow to operate in clear daylight sometimes, for, people to sell fentanyl, but not only for them to sell fentanyl, but for them to sell whatever it is, the synthetic opioids, the gas station heroin, and the things that are at, pot shops that are laced, or to sell, I remember when Delta 9 THC was legalized in Alabama, because it's not actually THC, and it was because, like, they would prefer a chemical company be able to make a product and sell it and license it than for somebody to be able to grow a plant that they had a well documented that there's a well-documented human relationship with. Cannabis has been around for thousands of years. You know, the cultivation of cannabis. Who knows how long cannabis has been around?
And do you think that this is enough to solve our $1 trillion debt?
Nope.
You know, I think the hemp textile industry could really do amazing things. We could build houses out of hemp. People don't realize what hemp could do. It grows fast. It's a diversely useful textile that could
You
do
can
all
make
kinds of
batteries.
things.
You can make electrical
When
batteries from hemp. You can make clothes. You can make ropes,
Yeah, you can make all
concrete,
kinds of things. You can make Tesla coils. You can make, like literally, you name it. There's a way that
food
you
for
can create a
livestock,
plastic out of the hemp, or that you can create. Yeah, I mean, it's unreal. Medicines. Let's just,
oils for skin
cut to
care, for
the chase.
health care.
How many other plants genuinely have as many uses and applications as hemp or marijuana does? I think there's pretty much hemp, coconut, and maybe corn are the three most diverse crops that I know. I don't know of anything that where every part of the crop is used as much as, maybe those three.
Sonny, how do you think we should solve the national debt crisis?
The national debt has been around my entire life. I don't think it's going to get solved, and probably not in my lifetime. It is so bad. The reason I say that,
It's not going to get solved.
it's because of the way the government spends money. They're totally irresponsible with how they handle stacked money. It's so bad. And if there was a way to do it, it would be a responsible government that would, but do a honest, decent budget and stick to the budget and start paying down the debt. That's not going to happen.
It would drive everybody crazy. Yeah, it's not going to happen. The thing is, debt is wealth, and we say America is the wealthiest nation only because we are the most in debt nation. We have created the most wealth. That is true. We have created it, but we've created it at the expense of the people that we take it from. And, to be an honest American is something that's kind of new. And most people don't want to realize the grim truth, which is a lot of these people that we're criticizing that have been giving our money to foreign lobbies and stuff have been just they've been bribing the world for America to not bomb us. That's what the UN was. The UN is an agreement for us to have our hand in all of those countries' business, or for them to be able to communicate with us. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be a channel for diplomacy.
When it comes to managing money, our government sucks. Okay, we're terrible at managing money. It's horrid. It's an example of what not to do. It's really that bad. And
yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's going to end in bankruptcy. That's where it's like our country's being driven off a cliff, and there's no way to stop the vehicle. Okay,
But don't we all get really rich when we declare bankruptcy?
It's going to be a disaster beyond anything you can imagine. If that, I mean, really, it's going to be horrid.
Yeah, it's bad.
So, okay.
That's why you gotta grow your own fruits and vegetables. That's why you gotta invest in gold and silver, and you gotta not be, reliant on anybody else but yourself.
Pretty much.
Well, here's my theory on how we can solve the national debt crisis, within Sony's lifetime, hopefully. I think we could do it in like 10 or 20 years if we really put our minds to it. But essentially, I think it comes in a two-part stage. We invest heavily into space-age technology and space exploration, and America becomes the bridge to space, which by the looks of it we are. Although, Japan and India and China and Russia, they're putting up, they're throwing their hats in the space ring too. And another, I know people are going to hate me, but I feel like maybe we just need to return the dollar back to the gold standard, right? And that alone will limit the printing money. And that means, right, because right now we got the fiat dollar, which is cool, but if our dollar was actually backed by gold, it would make it more trustworthy, not only by the American people, but also, countries around the world who also trade in gold. Gold's been the leading de facto value mechanism, so to speak, for thousands of years since the dawn of mankind. I think inflation is, a contributing factor to war. And if we want world peace, we have to solve this national debt problem by investing into space age technology. You know, asteroid mining, moon mining, planet mining, lunar bases, transportation, fusion propulsion systems. We could easily generate $1 trillion by 2030 in the next 10 years. If we can become that bridge to space, if we connect our dollar back to the gold standard, we can easily take on that national debt. I see the space race as one of the few last possible opportunities we have to solve the national debt crisis. And space innovation also creates high value jobs. It creates, advanced technology and things like that. I mean, just trying to go to the moon, we create a lot of great medical technology, which not only helps and benefits our society, but we can export it to other societies. And so, yeah, I think the gold standard is super effective, and that's what our dollar used to be based upon, before Nixon took it off. And on top of that, I think by, working with cryptocurrency, we can also kind of reduce our debt further. By having a decentralized wealth system, we are essentially creating more wealth within our centralized wealth system. We can build more wealth. We can invest in cryptocurrency and use the profits from that to reinvest in our own economies. Blockchains would also enable transparent trade, tariff mitigations. I feel like tariffs are temporary patches on this economic situation. I feel like long-term wise, they're not good. Short-term wise, they help kind of, strike up a deal, strike up a point, get things across. But long-term wise, we need something more significant. And to me, that seems like it's the gold standard. It's investing in space-age technology, space exploration, becoming the bridge to space, and then also just having that accountability, which leads me to one of my final points, the gold in Fort Knox. Do we have any updates on the gold in Fort Knox?
Great question. I wish I had an answer for you, man. It's been around a long time.
I'm just Googling Fort Knox news right now just to see what's going on. Supposedly we have the most gold in the world. It's right there in Fort Knox. Wow. What do you know, man? That is insane. That is insane. There was a recent report. Somebody went inside I don't know if it's artificial, right? They could say anything. They can tell the mainstream media anything. Somebody went inside Fort Knox, and they were able to attest that America has over 140 million ounces of gold, which is roughly $436 billion in actual value. So looks like Fort Knox is not empty, which is going to be essential when it comes to solving our national debt crisis. I think if Fort Knox was empty, man, there'd be absolutely no way to solve our national debt crisis. Our economy would immediately collapse. The long-term effects of Bidenomics, absolutely horrible. Cost of living right now in America is almost the exact opposite of what our grandparents experienced growing up. Used to be 1 or 2 jobs was enough. Now we're seeing payday loan advancements simply to just get gasoline to get to work. Single families are struggling, and this is already on top of all the attacks on the family unit, the nuclear family. Rise of socialism, rise of communism. People are getting desperate. They want to change, and, it all leads to further instability. We need to find that balance, and part of that is having a conversation, which is what this World Peace podcast is all about, understanding the world around us, finding the hidden meaning in life, and understanding the deeper questions we all ask ourselves. You guys have anything you want to say about the economy before we get our close up and our final statements?
And it sucks. How is milk $12? And I don't even drink regular milk, and you can't get raw milk. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, and meanwhile, 12 eggs in Brazil, if you want to get 12 eggs in Brazil, it's $1, but in the USA, it's $8.
$1 a piece. No, they're $1 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Thanks.
Well, you guys, I think that's going to do it for episode 1. We've been rocking and rolling for a few hours now, and this will be uploaded to YouTube and all the other major platforms by tomorrow. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Sony, do you have anything to say? Then Wilton, do you have anything to say? And then I'll begin the outro.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I really appreciate it, and it's good talking to you guys. There's so much to talk about. I mean, I'm sure we can talk about so many more topics than we covered tonight, but I just hope and pray and for y'all and for the future of this world and for the people in it, because it's truly horrifying what's been going on, and it's our country's under attack. There's no question about it, and if we don't shore up our defenses, if we don't fight back, it will succumb. So we have to fight. And I mean, I see all we were talking about all the communism and socialism. There is no greater evil on this planet that I've seen, and we've got to fight that, man. We just have to. So anyway, I hope that you guys have a great night, and thank you so much.
Yeah, man, thanks for coming. We definitely got to fight for our right to party. Freedom is not free. Wilton, any closing thoughts, statements?
Yeah, well, I was just going to thank you too, Sonny. Thanks for appearing on our podcast and being a part of the conversation today. It makes it better to have others to participate, because Darren and I have great conversations every time we talk, but we don't want to get stuck talking about the same things, and we don't want to bias ourselves just by creating a bubble where we're not allowing other voices to influence us and to be a part of the conversation. So thanks for sharing your views, and we really appreciate that. And yeah, Darren, I thanks for having me on the podcast again, and for making this a reality, because we've been talking about it, and we've posted the podcast number 1 multiple times, and we haven't always talked about the same things. We always make it relevant to the day that we've posted it, but technical difficulties have kind of gotten in the way, and we haven't always done the best. There've been nights where we were both frustrated, and we didn't have anybody listen to us.
There were nights
and
where Wilton and I were
we had other things going on in our lives. We were busy, you know what I mean?
We were trying to record this podcast on New Year's Eve. Someone walked up to Wilton and threatened to set him on fire. So we've had, besides technical difficulties, there's been a lot of external factors, definitely.
I mean, yeah, it's a struggle to have everybody on the same page. And as a musician who's tried to start a band multiple times and just not been able to herd enough jazz cats, I understand how hard it can be to get people. You can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink the same way. You can feed a horse, but it not let you ride it, or I don't know what the metaphor is here, but I've kind of gotten sidetracked myself. We've been talking for a long time.
Oh yes, I was going to say, She Van Fleet is a survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, and she has a podcast. She has a space that she does every Tuesday evening, and I invite you guys to please come and listen to that. It is incredible when you listen to the stuff that they went through in China. It is an eye opener, I'm telling you. It's definitely worth listening.
We'll definitely be there during She-Van's next space. We'll love to talk to her and hear her story. Maybe someday we could have her on the show. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, she's awesome.
It makes me interested how many Americans might be saying, I survived Biden's economy, and they're having a podcast in China right now.
Man, for real. Biden was horrible.
Wilton, how can we
Yeah, I
support and
mean,
follow you?
I survived the auto pen.
How can we
What?
support and follow you?
My Twitter handle is my everything handle. It's just at Wilton Cassibry. You can find me all over the internet, wherever I might appear. I won't say I'll be on any of those platforms specifically, to advertise because, I have current social media accounts that I might close and reconfigure, and I've been still trying to figure out my, social media outreach. Trying to put my music out, so just stay following me on Twitter, and I'll eventually probably release a link to my Bandcamp or wherever I decide to publish my music.
Definitely, man. And yeah, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Wilton and I will be back again here with another episode, maybe later today and maybe tomorrow or sometime this week. But yeah, the schedule is definitely random, but we will try to record as much as possible. And we'll do our best not to keep you waiting. And thank you so much, each and every single one of you, tuning in to the show. It means the world to us. Hit that like button, drop a comment below. Be sure to subscribe, copy the link, send it to your family and friends. And yeah, man, rockin' world peace, man. We're all brothers and sisters. Love is the answer. Doesn't matter what race or religion you are. Together we can save the world. Peace.